Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. The chairman of the board, Mr. David Reed, is back with us today. Hello, David Reed.
Good afternoon. So you about to fire it up? I think you're about to fire up the people on this Fireball Hot Take Friday.
Well, you missed it yesterday. I just want to know, is my audio levels okay? Because I was screwing around with it earlier today, and so I just want to make sure it's all
good. They always sound great until you start yelling, but
well,
we'll go
I'm
from
about
there.
To start yelling, so,
okay.
We'll keep our eye on that one. But he is right. I have a rant to start today's show. If I may, David Reed, you kind of missed the crux of this yesterday on the program, but I have got to rant. I have to. About you people. I am starting today's show on this Fireball Hot Take Friday with a you people rant. So we live in Nashville, Tennessee, home of the Tennessee Titans, the NFL team. That's my NFL team. That's your NFL team. As fans, we've been through some pretty epic highs like the Music City Miracle and Steve McNair's MVP season and the 2019 AFC title game run. And we've been through some pretty bad lows like Vince Young throwing his pads in the stands, the Ken Whisenhunt era, and of course, who can forget, let Rand cook. So we've seen it all, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. So the Titans draft Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I would say as a Titan fan that I am hopeful, and I mean hopeful, that Cam Ward is that dude. That he is Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson. But I'm also cautious. So I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. There are questions I have when it comes to developing a quarterback to be a franchise quarterback. Like, do the Titans have the right infrastructure in place for Cam Ward to be successful? Is Cam Ward really the number 1 pick in the draft? Or is he just the number 1 choice in a very bad quarterback class, a la Kyler Murray in 2019? And because I lived through the aforementioned Vince Young and Marcus Mariota and, yes, Will Levis last year, I'm a little guarded. And then I hear crazy stuff. And it's one thing when it comes from fans. I know fans just want to, yeah! Oh, he's Mahomes, Jared. It's another thing when it comes from a talking head on TV who I don't think really knows what they're talking about, like Louis Riddick. When he says, I see Patrick Mahomes in Cam Ward. And before you get all mad about me talking about Louis Riddick, just remember, Louis Riddick said the only difference between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders was that Cam Ward has more arm strength. That's it. Sure. But then I hear Cam Ward, after practice yesterday, saying crazy stuff, like about his confidence. After throwing interceptions in practice, he says his confidence is still a 10 out of 10. He says he could throw 4 interceptions in a football game, and he would still be a 10 out of 10 in terms of confidence. And I just have to point out, and I did yesterday, and I did this morning on Robbie and Joe, that it is impossible to be a 10 out of 10 in terms of confidence all the time. I also think it is impossible to be a 10 out of 10 with your confidence about something that you have never, ever, ever done before. Again, I don't think that's crazy. I say it, and all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy. Oh, Jared Stillman's a hater. Jared Stillman doesn't want Cam to be any good. Jared Stillman hates the Titans. Jared Stillman is finding something to complain about. Jared Stillman, again, the idea that a guy who has never taken a snap in an NFL game has a 10 out of 10 confidence is impossible. It's impossible. Joe Burrow is confident. Was he 10 out of 10 when he went to the crappy Bengals as a rookie? I doubt it. Was he 10 after 10 or 10 for 10 when he blew up his knee and was sitting there in surgery? Again, I doubt it. But I'm the bad guy because I just want to take a second to discuss how absolutely incredulous it makes me to say something so ridiculous. Like, oh, I'm a 10 out of 10 when it comes to my confidence. I'll always be 10 out of 10. I'm a gunslinger. Okay, Brett Favre. Can we spend any time here, again, being intellectually honest and discuss just how hard it is to succeed in the NFL? I mean, other guys have tried it. And we're talking about guys, hate to say it, who are more accomplished than Cam Ward, like Vince Young, the national championship game MVP. I keep seeing people this morning on the text line. They were like, Cam's a winner. Cam didn't win the ACC. Cam didn't even get to the ACC championship game. Cam didn't even beat Georgia Tech. Cam is not a bigger winner than Vince Young. I'm sorry. And this game humbled Vince Young. Or Marcus Mariota. Again, far more accomplished than Cam Ward in college. Marcus won the Heisman Trophy. Marcus got to the national championship game. Marcus won his conference. And both Marcus and Vince failed. I wanted them to be the guy too. You want to know why they failed? Because being a star quarterback in the NFL is really, really, really hard. So Cam Ward goes out, says something outrageous. I could throw 4 interceptions in a game and I'll still be fine. And I'm the bad guy for saying, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. You'll throw 4 interceptions in a game and still be 10 out of 10 in terms of your confidence. You do know Ryan Tannehill, who made $200 million playing quarterback in the NFL, threw 3 interceptions in a game and ended up in therapy because of it. And I just don't get it with you people. Again, the same people that gassed up Will Levis last year, this time last year, we played the cut yesterday of that guy on Bussin' with the Boys, just losing his mind about, Will, bro, I was so sad when we drafted you because I was a UT fan and you played at Kentucky and I didn't like you. But now I've said I'm wrong, Will Levis. You're the guy. You're the man. You're awesome. You're the. And apparently that's the good guy and I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. I've never said Cam will be a bust. I've never said that I hope Cam will be a bust. I've never said Cam can't play in the NFL. I never said Cam shouldn't be a first-round pick. I just said I wouldn't draft Cam Ward. And now for you, the same people that gassed up Levis last year, they're gassing up Cam Ward, and they're like, you have to be confident to play in the NFL. You have to be confident to make it to the NFL. Again, Levis, you sure Levis was Mr. Confident? It's funny. I actually talked to Will Levis about that last year at the Super Bowl. And I said, how important was that Atlanta game that you had? And he said, I always thought I could do it, but that was the moment that I really realized, yeah, I could do this. And how'd that work out for him? Again, yeah, Will Levis sucks, but Cam, he's the man. Again, after an entire offseason of, Will, bro, I'm sorry. I was a big UT fan. We drafted you, and I was mad about it. But you're the man, and you're going to show them, and you're a dog, and And now the same people are like, oh, no. Will Levis, he sucks. But Cam, he's the man. He's confident. He's a dog, Jared. He's a winner. Is he more of a winner than Vince Young? But, Jared, we want to be positive. You were positive last year. What did that get you? So, again, it hit me this morning after I went on Robbie and Joe. It hit me just how ridiculous this is that Cam says something, again, that's crazy talk, that I'm 10 out of 10 confident I can play in the NFL. I'll tell you right now, I've been on Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio all week. I've been in a slot that's going to go to Stephen A. Smith. I think I can do that on a daily basis. I think I could be a national top-end radio host in this country. And I think I'd piss people off the same way I piss them off here. And I think it'd work. But am I 10 out of 10 confident that if ESPN Radio hired me today and said, all right, we're giving you the Colin Cowherd slot, now go be the next Colin Cowherd, am I 10 out of 10 confident that I could do it? No. I'd be afraid of failing. Absolutely. So again, Cam says something ridiculous. I point out that it's ridiculous, and I'm the bad guy. Again, you people. Just keep living in your world of Bill Callahan will fix it. And Will, bro, I didn't like it because I liked UT when we drafted you, but you're a dog. You're going to go show out. You're our guy. Keep living in that world. And I'll keep living in reality. 10 out of 10 confidence. Give me a break. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So there is something that Chad Brinker said about Cam Ward that I didn't think he wasn't telling the truth when he said it. And I'm not saying that I think Chad Brinker lied about this, but I am of the opinion that maybe Chad might have miscalculated. And I'd say this is a pretty big calculation that I want to get to. And we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number at 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106 for the game.
What would you say your confidence level is before this break heading into training camp?
10.
You ever at a 4 or a 5 or a 6, and when did you get to 10?
Nah, I'll probably never get that low. Even if I, throw a 4-book game this year. At the end of the day, I'm a gunslinger. I live by that. I always die by it. So Coach Callahan know what type of guy he has in the quarterback room and me. And so, I'm just thankful that I got guys around me to help me out, along with B.A., Brandon, and Will. The Tim in there, they help me out a lot, just getting me right with the protections. Then also the receiving core, they're going to be able to, compliment my game a lot.
That was Cam Ward yesterday. Hey, I'm always going to be 10 out of 10. I mean, I could throw 4 interceptions, and my confidence will be 10 out of 10. My favorite is we played the cut from the Belichick audiobook about confidence yesterday. The one where Belichick's like, people act like you can just go get confidence from a store. You can't go get confidence from a store, but I can tell you where it comes from. And I heard them play it this morning, and they're like, oh, man, this is putting me to sleep. I'm like, hey, that's why I got that book, because it is like melatonin meets Ambien all into one. But I would say also that Belichick probably knows a lot about football players' confidence because he's been around the game long enough and probably seen some of it and some of the other stuff. Again, 10 out of 10 confidence. It sounds good, but it's just not. You can't be confident until you actually do something. It's like Trevor says, success precedes confidence. And so I heard that cut, and then I heard some of the other cuts that he said yesterday, talking about the receiving core and how good all those players were and things like that. And it took me back to something that Chad Brinker said before the draft about Cam Ward that I am a little worried that they may have gotten wrong. Here's what here's what Chad Brinker said about Ward before they drafted him about his confidence.
Chad, if you spin it back to Miami's pro day, Cam, he rolls out, throws to Restrepo, and he says to you guys, I solidified it. What does that say about his confidence, and how much did that kind of resonate with you that he, in the middle of the workout, took the time to send that message?
Yeah, I think you got to get to know Cam to understand that, his personality. I think we enjoyed it. It was a cool moment. Cam's he's confident. I wouldn't say he's cocky. I think there's a fine line between the two, and he carries himself the right way. I just appreciate the way he approaches the game, his competitiveness, and just the way he plays the game with a quiet mind and the confidence that he has. I think that's been impressive.
He's confident. He's not cocky, and there is a fine line. Chad Brinker said at the time. I'm starting to get the vibe that Brinker might have been wrong about that. That Cam might actually be cocky. I could throw 4 picks in a game and I'll still be confident. All right, let's go to Denver. Throw 4 picks in a game and then see what happens. I'm sure Will Levis this time last year said he was confident and not cocky too. The problem was that he flipped the ball to Chicago one time and all of a sudden his entire season went down the toilet. Dude, this is the NFL. When I hear comments like that from Cam, and I know it gasses up the fan base, yeah, that's our guy. He's a dog. He's confident. I get that. But when I hear that, I almost think that it almost is underappreciating how freaking hard this game is and how hard the other guys tried to and how high the stakes are. I asked Levis last year, I said, what do you make of the fact that if a guy has a good season at quarterback, he gets paid $50-something million a season? Have you thought about that? He's like, of course I've thought about that. And I wonder if that pressure, really paralyzed Levis last year. Now, I think Levis has his own issues, and I don't think he'll ever be able to overcome them, but I do wonder that. And so I say that because, again, football is hard. Cam Ward is going to get kicked in the teeth. Cam Ward is on the worst team in the NFL. The worst. We don't even know if his coach can coach. And he's sitting here saying, I throw 4 books in a game, which I'd never even heard that term before. I throw a 4-book game and I'll still be a gunslinger. Coach Callahan knows what kind of player I am, which is funny because if I was the coach, we'd be running the football line because I'm trying to bring the young quarterback along slowly. But apparently everybody thinks that, oh, no, if you just tell yourself you're confident, you'll go out there in the NFL and you'll light it up. That's not how this works. Again, you think that these guys just roll out of bed and say, all right, I'm going to be good today. Quarterback is hard. The NFL is hard. And yesterday I talked about it, about how it feels like Cam just doesn't seem to realize how difficult this is going to be. That's the vibe I get, that he doesn't realize how hard this is going to be. And people say, what do you know about the NFL? You didn't play in the NFL. And you're right, I didn't. But I watched Vince Young and I watched Mariota. We all lived through that. Marcus Mariota was a freaking stud in college. Vince Young is one of the best college players ever. It's hard. And when I hear Cam say things like that, again, and Brinker talks about the difference between confidence and cockiness, I'm like, is he really appreciating how difficult this is going to be? 615-737-1025. And your phones are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. Jonathan says, and our phone lines again driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Jonathan says, Jared, I usually agree with you, but what is Cam supposed to say? Is he supposed to say, well, I'm a 5 out of 10? Is he supposed to say that he's ready for the NFL and everybody else would just rip him for that? So here's the thing again, and I think Cam does know this. This is another veteran savvy thing here. You don't answer what they ask. You answer what you want to tell them. So if somebody were to ask me, what's your confidence level heading into camp? Again, that was the question. What's your confidence level heading into camp? The answer is, I'm just really excited to get started. I mean, I'm just really excited to attack the rest of the offseason and get going into camp. And hopefully, you know, we can come together as a group and we're going to work really, really hard. And that's all you got to do. We're going to work really, really hard. And we're going to spend a lot of time, you know, really focusing on dialing in on the things that we need to dial in on. And I'm just really excited for that. The end. That's how you answer that question. For everybody out there that's like, well, I want a confident quarterback. Again, Will Levis was a confident quarterback last year. Where'd that get you? Unbelievable. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. There's another thing Cam Ward said yesterday that hasn't blown up because I haven't made a big deal about it. Apparently that's what blows these things up, I guess. But I heard and I was like, oh, no. No. This is the one that really pissed me off from Cam Ward. And I don't know if I've heard people talk about this yet, but talk about disrespecting how hard the game is. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in again, 615-737-1025. Tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Norfolk. Pregame at 5:20, first pitch 5:35. Coverage available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Staley Chicago Italian Dining, one of Nashville's best kept secrets and award winners of numerous best of awards. Enjoy authentic Italian beef sandwiches, Vienna Chicago dogs, and the best gyros south of Chicago. Get half off a $20 gift card right now while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. So again, people are mad because Cam Ward said he was 10 out of 10 confidence. And I said, yeah, that's just not possible. Like, let's be real around here. That's not possible to be 10 out of 10 confident when you've never done something before. And apparently I'm the bad guy. So I listened to the whole Cam Ward because that went down yesterday at practice while we were on the air. I listened to the whole availability today. And there was one cut in particular that drove me absolutely freaking bananas. And it's in reference to the interceptions that he threw yesterday. One was to Cody Barton in the 7-on-7s. And I think it was 2 or 3 yesterday and 1 the first day. So Cam's throwing some interceptions. Again, I'm not upset about it. I'm not panicking. I'm not, oh my God, he's throwing interceptions. Just like I wasn't, oh my God, he was 20 of 21. But his response to the interceptions, that pissed me off. Play the cut.
So we hadn't seen many picks from you in the offseason. Today, there are a couple. What do you learn maybe from a day and from maybe a couple of picks like that?
The first one, 7-on-7, I don't count that. It's not real football. I'm glad I threw it to Cody. That was 6 points for my team. So, the second one, I should have sidearmed it. I don't know why I did some generic stuff. And really just getting better off the film. Got to continue to move backwards with my eyes. And then really just, playing clean football, especially in the red zone. I have to take care of the ball. I'm aware of that. But, I'd rather do all the crazy stuff in practice. So in the game, I know I can get away with.
Oh, my God. Well, 7-on-7, that doesn't count. That's not real football. Dude, you want to know a secret? You wear a red jersey, which means in practice, they can't hit you. Even when they put the pads on and you're throwing to your receivers who are getting popped, they can't hit you. Even when you go out for joint practices against Tampa Bay and Atlanta and you're wearing a red jersey, which with them going to Tampa Bay and Atlanta, what would probably happen is the Titans would probably wear either the dark blue practice uniforms or the white practice uniforms, and Cam would wear the light blue because red is obviously an Atlanta and Tampa Bay color. But when you're wearing that different color, they can't hit you. You will not get into a real football game moment until the preseason, and that'll be against backups, and that's not real football either if you don't want to count that. But when I heard I don't count that, it's 7-on-7, plus Cody's on my team, 6 points, yay! I thought, dude, you need to start taking this stuff seriously. Like 7-on-7, that is as close as you're going to get for a while to playing real football. That's the best you're going to get. Like, this ain't a joke to me. Practice is serious. And I remember last year, Will Levis threw the ball in the lake, and we laughed about it. Oh, my God. And everybody's like, oh, no, it's just practice. And they played the Seahawks, and they could not, in practice, get a freaking first down against Seattle. Oh, it's practice. He throws an interception on the first play of the 2-minute drill, and Callahan says, good job today, guys. And Ridley and Levis can't connect. Oh, it's practice. Practice doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just a practice. Well, let's play the Bill Belichick audiobook. Again, I know Bill's kind of a joke right now because of the girlfriend thing, but Bill does know football. Let's play the Bill Belichick book. Hey, Bill, is practice a joking matter?
If I had to pick one sentence that summarizes my coaching philosophy and how I evaluated myself in my job, it would be this: practice execution becomes game reality. My players have heard me say that hundreds of times because it is the absolute truth. When a player can execute a skill on the practice field against another competitive player with consistent success, he is capable of implementing that skill in a game. Conversely, if a player cannot consistently execute in practice, the chances of having a successful play in the game are close to zero.
Bingo! So instead of, that one didn't count, how about we learn about what happened on that play so we can fix it so the next time we're on the practice field, it won't happen again? Because, as Bill said, practice execution equals game success. It's just such a joke. Oh, yeah, I don't count. That's not real football. Again, I'm telling you right now, if that press availability, if I was at the combine and the meeting I had with Cam Ward was that press availability, he'd be off the board. To me, this is the same. If you remember, there was that one team that didn't like Will Levis because he took that bag of chips and they felt that meant he was entitled. If you tell me that you threw an interception in practice and that's not going to work for me. What's important is that you take care of the ball. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com. Let's get to some phones. 615-737-1025. The YouTube chat, very mad today. So I assume that on a certain level, probably the text line is as well. Some person put in here, struggling for content on Friday, still talking about the confidence thing. You're making a mountain out of an anthill. I'm a little surprised by this. I'm a little surprised by this idea that now everybody thinks they know how to program the show with this. You're talking about something I don't like. It must be a slow news day. Really? Did you watch the Stanley Cup final game last night? It was unbelievable. By the way, the Predators have a top 5 draft choice. And if they're going to get this thing turned around, they better hit if you're watching the Stanley Cup final, because that's how Florida and Edmonton are good. Atlanta's getting a hockey team. I think Atlanta's a terrible sports city. Magic Johnson says in order to be a superstar, you have to sell out buildings. But I don't think certain guys like Shohei Ohtani doesn't sell out the building. I think he's a pretty big superstar. The NBA Finals, which I actually am starting to get into a little bit, that's tonight. You think it's a slow news day? No. The quarterback of your team says stupid crap. It's going to get talked about. You say, practice. I mean, I'm sorry. That's not how it works. But again, when you don't like something, you just say, this must just be a slow news day. One texter says, Cam is putting in the work to get ready for the NFL. He's there before everybody else, and I would rather have a confident quarterback than a timid quarterback. It's not that I don't want a confident quarterback. A confident quarterback's important. It's that he can't be that confident. He just can't be. I'd like to have a quarterback that understands reality. Sometimes I think, again, and this happens with all jobs and all industries and all everything. I mean, think about, and I don't know how many of you have careers that, again, I don't know like how everybody else went about, but like some people have jobs, some people have careers, and there's no difference between the two. But when you've got a career where you set out to do something, I mean, I got high hopes when I started my career too. I didn't know how hard it was going to be. Like Cam's got to understand, like, dude, it's hard and you only get a couple of years. And even a couple of years, I mean, Will Levis didn't get a couple of years. Zach Wilson picked pretty high in the draft. And instead, Cam's like, that interception, that doesn't matter. So you think that he can throw those interceptions that don't matter in 7-on-7, and we just say, those don't count. And then he'll get out there against Denver and he won't try to make the same throw. It's unbelievable. One texter says, nobody knows what Cam will be. I don't think there's any issue with him going into this confidently. The problem is that the team sucks so bad around him. I don't want him to be delusional. Love the confidence. We kind of need the cockiness. But what are they going to look like if he puts up 3 wins? I'm afraid it will shake him permanently. See, now that I believe. See, this is what I'm afraid of. Again, you guys call it confidence. And I just don't believe what you're talking about with I love the confidence that Cam shows. I don't consider that confidence. I consider that to be optimism, hope, positivity. So I don't want a quarterback that's going to be delusional and think that it's going to come easy to him. When, again, it wasn't as if Cam was 11-0 and the Heisman Trophy winner at Miami. They didn't even make the ACC championship game. So, again, I don't think you can be confident when you haven't done something before. I just don't think it exists. You can be hopeful, But what I am worried about is I'm worried about Cam talking all this trash about, oh, I'm a 10 out of 10. I'm a gunslinger. I'm Brett Favre. And then it totally falling apart and everybody looking at Cam the same way they looked at Will Levis. And they said, wait a minute. I thought you were the mayonnaise. What happened? And I've been around the block long enough and have seen this happen to enough quarterbacks. Again, Vince Young was so freaking good in college. Vince Young was rookie of the year and made the Pro Bowl. Vince Young made a second Pro Bowl after Jeff Fisher sent Dowell Loggins to his house for a wellness check because Vince's mom was worried about him after the Raider game in 2008. Jacksonville game in 2008. You think it's that easy to be 10 out of 10? He's confident, Jared. No, he's arrogant. That's what that is. You think this is that easy? Dude, this is the NFL. The reason that they're paying Josh Allen $100 million in the last 2 years of his contract, he's going to get $100 million a year. He had, I think it was something like whatever the new money was. He had a 4-year deal with X amount of dollars. He signed a new contract, and the new money is 2 extra years at $200 million. That's $100 million a year. You want to know why they're paying Josh Allen $100 million? Because he can do it. That's why. Because very few can. He can do it. There's a difference. 615-737-1025. We will go through more of your phones, but I know a lot of you out there want me to be positive. Be positive, Jared. We want to be positive. Us fans, we want positive. There is one thing that I am going to be positive about, and we will do that next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Fireball Hot Take Friday, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I am confident in Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical because I have used Hiller at my home hundreds of times. I think it's hundreds. I mean, I've used them so many times. I am confident about the job they will do. Again, I've done it. It works. Have you ever called a plumber, electrician, HVAC tech, and found that they were trying to sell you something that you did not need? Yeah, I've been there too. If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, it's because, guess what? It is. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for these type of discounted club memberships. Unlike Hiller, Hiller never offers deals assigned or designed to trick you or sell you something you don't need. And so, I love talking about Hiller. They're my friends. They take great care of my home, and they'll do the same for you. This is why I trust them. So schedule online like I do at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
year 2 of your system. You know, some of them have talked about being able to go deeper into the playbook with their understanding and all. How valuable is that? And also, how much changes year over year when you go back and reassess?
That's a good question. There's a lot of layers to that. Probably the easiest answer is that the first year, guys are focusing a lot on what to do. You know, they're trying to learn new terminology, how we want routes run, how the process, what they have to do. The second year is a little bit more about how to do it. The different techniques. They're worried less about what words mean because they know. They're worried less about what the language is because they've been through it. And now it's a lot more about, you know, the details within all of that. You know, it's probably if you count the times through not counting the season, just installation wise, you know, they've been through the installation quite a few times. So everything is, the newness of it is gone. And now it's about how do we refine the details of what we're asking. You know, from a route technique standpoint, from a coverage recognition standpoint, those are all really important aspects. And it's just part of building. You know, when you're doing something new, that first step is you're just trying to get it all under your grasp. And then as you improve at it, you're trying to find out how you can do a better job within the framework of the system. So that's probably the easiest way to explain kind of year 1 versus year 2 for our guys.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about year 1 versus year 2. The text line is just blowing up right now about the Cam Ward confidence stuff, which I kind of figured would happen just because people got so pissed about it. And Jake Lyman, I mean, I love Jake, but he was doing Robbie and Joe this morning with Joe. I mean, Jake has like every go true blue Kool-Aid take out there. So I figured if he would get all worked up about it, surely the text line would, and it has. But I want to be positive for a second. Can I be positive? Reed, can I be positive?
I doubt it.
Titan fans are like, we want you to be positive, Jared. I even after the show yesterday, you know, when I do a 4-hour show, my brain afterwards sometimes is just absolute mush. Like, I'm just not good at talking, good at conversing, good at I just kind of stare off into space and might see something on my phone or my whatever. It's like I need a mental reset after the show's over. And yesterday I was with my girlfriend and son, and I just said to her, I go, these Titan fans are just so delusional sometimes. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, last year, I mean, they gassed up this quarterback and then they had their hearts broken. And now they're gassing up this quarterback and they're going to have their hearts broken because it's hard in this league. And I mean, I hope it works for Cam, and she said, she looked at me and she goes, Jared, sometimes people just want to have hope. And I'm like, okay, but this is not the Barney channel. This is the reality channel. But I do want to be positive about something. If I may be positive, text line for a second, if you'll give me something I can. Bryce Oliver had 3 touchdowns yesterday at mandatory minicamp. And I'm starting to really like Bryce Oliver. Now, this time last year, Bryce Oliver was an undrafted free agent. I had no idea who Bryce Oliver was. If Bryce Oliver had walked into my house, I would have called the cops because I would have had no idea who that was. If somebody texted me and said, hey, Bryce Oliver wants to come on the show, I would say, who in the hell is that? And yet at training camp last year, Bryce Oliver just kept making play after play after play because he would make a catch. And I would have to look, I'd see number 80 would make a catch, and I would have to look down at the roster because about 3 or 4 times, I'm like, who the hell is number 80? And every time I'd see Bryce Oliver, undrafted free agent, I'm like, huh. And finally, I knew who number 80 was because he kept making so many plays. Then they get into preseason games. And if you remember, they went to New Orleans, that kind of Malik Willis showcase game. And Bryce Oliver caught a couple of touchdowns, and they were impressive catches. And so Bryce Oliver doesn't make the team. And then Bryce Oliver gets called up off the practice squad at the end of last year, plays in a couple of games, and again, makes some catches, makes some plays. Well, here's Bryce Oliver, mandatory minicamp. Bryce Oliver making catches, making plays. Well, I want to see this guy get an opportunity because every opportunity that he's gotten, big or small, whether it's a mini camp practice, a training camp practice, a preseason game, a special teams rep, it seems like Bryce Oliver seems to do the right thing every time. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that Bryce Oliver is the number 2 receiver. No worries about drafting somebody. No need to go get someone opposite Ridley. Bryce Oliver's the guy. I'm not saying that. But I am saying I'd like to see Bryce Oliver get more of an opportunity. I'd like to see them look at him in training camp as an actual receiving option because, again, how many times does Bryce Oliver need to do the right thing on the football field on a team that nobody seems to do the right thing on the football field before you say, you know what, let's put him in there because he is doing the right thing on the football field. And Gentry Estes last year was covering the Olympics, and so he wasn't at training camp. And we were talking about Bryce Oliver, and he said to me, I wasn't at training camp last year, so I didn't see the Bryce Oliver that you're talking about that made you look at the card all the time. Say, who the hell's number 80? So yesterday, after Bryce Oliver had 3 touchdowns, I said, you on the Bryce Oliver train yet? He said, well, I just don't know how he makes the team because they're obviously going to keep Ridley, Lockett, Io Manor, and DK. Then Traylon Burks has guaranteed money, and I think it is more likely than not that Traylon Burks probably makes the team. So now you're at 5. So how's Oliver making the team? And I would just say this. Where would Bryce Oliver rank in that room? Like, again, if Calvin Ridley's number 1, and right now Tyler Lockett's number 2, in terms of talent, ability, and production, where would Bryce Oliver rank? Because I do believe that Bryce Oliver would be in the top 6. And he helps out on special teams, and he can run, and I am a Bryce Oliver fan. So when Bryce Oliver goes out there and does his thing in minicamp, just like he did last year in training camp, just like he did in the preseason, just like he did in the limited opportunities that he's received, it gives me hope that, hey, Bryce Oliver might be able to make some plays for the Tennessee Titans. And I'm not saying make some plays in a preseason game nobody cares about. I'm talking about, hey, let's try it. Let's try Ridley on the outside, Oliver on the outside, Lockett on the inside, Chigakonkwo, who I can't stand at tight end. Let's do that. And let's see what it looks like in training camp. And let's give him an opportunity in the preseason. Let's see if he can play. So there you go. There's my positivity. I really like Bryce Oliver. And again, I like Bryce Oliver because every time his name seems to come up, he seems to keep doing something. One texter who just hate listens to this show said, I don't want you to be positive. I want you to be objective and fair. You are not. You used to be closer to that with the GM. He kept you in check. You need someone you respect to keep you in reality. You're not in reality about this. Well, when the GM and I did the show together, the Titans were going to the AFC Championship game. Like, it was a lot easier to say good things about the team when they were one of the 4 best teams in the league and not the worst single team in the NFL. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Will Levis. I want to get to this Will Levis cut from yesterday because it kind of flew under the radar. And if Gentry didn't write about it in his column, it would have flown under the radar for me too. And I kind of wonder what Will Levis is actually talking about in this cut. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So Cam Ward's all the talk. Again, he's the new shiny toy. But remember last year's shiny toy, Will Levis, and remember how this time last year, you people thought Will Levis was the second coming of Dan Marino. I remember, and again, I'm not knocking TD or PK, but I remember when I was on vacation in the Bahamas and I was listening to the morning show. And so Joe and Paul were talking to TD. And Joe wanted to pin Paul down and he wanted to say, okay, is Levis the guy or is he not the guy? You have to bet your house on it now. And Paul was like, I don't want to bet my house on it now. And it was like, but you have to. It's the point of this topic. And they both decided, PK and TD, that they would say, okay, yeah, Levis will be the guy. Just because, you know, if the standard is Trevor Lawrence or Tua, that doesn't seem to be all that hard to get to. And I heard that, and I thought, that could be, but I would bet the other way. I would bet against Levis. And I said it because, you know, most of these guys fail. There wasn't one thing in particular that made me think Levis couldn't play at that point in time. I knew what Levis is. I had said that I was right down the middle on Levis, where I could see this going either way. I could see Levis lighting it up, throwing the ball down the field, being a Brett Favre-like gunslinger, or I could see Levis, again, there was a throw he made, an interception where he didn't see the defender go away from Traylon Burks and to DeAndre Hopkins in a Texan game, and maybe he'll never learn. But I don't know. But I would bet against it. And in the first game against Chicago, before he threw that flick in the air that got intercepted, the Fox graphic puts up stats in between plays. And Levis had thrown a pass, and I think it was incomplete, and it was, you know, Levis, 10 of 14 for 79 yards, and we're in the fourth quarter, and he's 10 of 14. And I said, I looked at my dad, and I go, I think he's like a backup. I don't think Dan Marino is throwing for 79 yards in 3 quarters in game 1 of year 2. And on the very next play, Levis backhanded the ball right into the air. Chicago ran it back for a touchdown, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And then the next week, he rolled the ball on the ground, and at that point, I was like, all right, this guy's a dope. But Jared, it's just 2 games. So at the end of the season, Will Levis got benched. To me, that was the unofficial end. And I'm not exactly sure why he's still on the team, because most teams that draft a quarterback number 1, they don't do that thing where they, you know, footsie around with the old guy. They usually ship him off for peanuts and go get the next guy. But apparently that's what the Titans are doing. And Will Levis, after practice yesterday, said something that I heard, and I was like, wait a minute, what? And so this is from Jim Wyatt's Twitter. This was Will Levis talking about his mental headspace last season. Here's what he said.
One thing I've kind of learned the hard way is there's no way to play your best ball if you have other things that, you know, you let kind of affect your mind and your mental. And I had to learn that and work through that throughout the season. I was able to have people around me to support me and get me back into that right mindset. And it's really hard when you're in the mix of things and in the fire, like during a season. But I really, for the first time after the season, was able to kind of sit back, collect myself, realized that the mind space that I was in, that those 20 weeks was not me. And I felt like I used that time to get back to base. And I'm not quite ready to talk on all of that quite yet, but yeah, it just wasn't in the right spot. And it's hard to pull yourself out of that when you're in the thick of it like that. And I'm glad that I was able to afterwards.
That 20 weeks wasn't me? That 20 weeks? Like, wait a minute. Hey, you can't play your best ball when your mind is just off in la-la land. And, you know, I had a lot of people that helped me get back to where I needed to be. But for those 20 weeks, that wasn't me. And I'm like, number one, I need more information. Like, is he talking about, hey, I got too cocky? You know, I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't. I was trying to act like I see starting quarterbacks act on television. That isn't me. You know, the way I approach the work, I was trying too hard for the cameras. I was trying too hard for my mayonnaise commercials. Like, what's he talking about? And in that second part of the cut, you know, he's like, I'm not ready to get into all that right now. So was it a mindset thing? Was it I was too cocky, too arrogant? Was it the girlfriend? You know, they had broken up or whatever, and she's all out and about on social media. Was it the new girlfriend? You know, she's kind of from all accounts, I don't know anything about her. I guess she was on The Bachelor, but apparently she's kind of a fame seeker from what the word on the street says. You know, in fact, the two girlfriends I saw on social media, they were hanging out at CMA Fest this weekend. Is it that? Is it like the love triangle there? Is it, again, I mean, I hate to say it, but was it the sex tape? Like, was it that out there that I mean, what are we talking about here? And I find this to be really fascinating because I think I've been through stages in my life over the years where there was a period of time, you know, half a year, a quarter or something where I'm like, dude, my head was not there. There was a time in college, my senior year, you know, where I was just so ready to be done with college. I was so ready to leave that I just wasn't in the right place. And then I made a lot of bad decisions. Not that anything that got me in trouble or anything like that, but I just wasn't where I needed to be. And so is that what he's talking about? I don't know, but I heard that and I was like, hold on. Like, don't we need to talk about this? Again, those 20 weeks weren't me. And it's hard when you're in the middle of the fire and you're going week to week and you're trying to, what are we talking about here? And then asked, hey, what was different about you? Well, I'm not really ready to get into that. I am going to say this, and I have no idea what Levis is doing as far as his mental health is concerned. You know, I don't know if he sees a therapist or if the team has a psychologist that he sees, or if he started seeing somebody on his own. I have no idea, and it's none of my business. And I'm not going to say like Levis needs to go see a therapist because, again, that's also not any of my business. I would think that if you can afford it and you can, it probably wouldn't hurt. But what I will say is when it comes to Levis last year, and I saw this, TD and I talked about this off the air a couple weeks ago. They played Tampa Bay. I think it was his third start in 2023. And late in the game, it was a 1-score game, and then Tampa Bay scored to make it a 2-score game in the fourth quarter, and Levis just throws an absolute YOLO ball down the middle of the field that should have been intercepted. I think it got dropped. And from that point on, Tim Kelly was not dialing up throws down the field. The next throw was a bubble screen to Kyle Phillips, and it was all the short stuff. And I looked back at that tape, and I realized what Tim Kelly saw. I could just see it. He knew Levis is pressing. Levis is trying too hard. He's trying to chuck the ball down the field. He's trying to hit a 2-touchdown home run. You can't do that. And so instead of saying, hey, Will, take it easy, Tim Kelly just changed the playbook and the play call so Levis couldn't do that. And then I sat down with him at the Super Bowl, and I've told this story many times, but when I sat down with him at the Super Bowl, he was bound so tight. Like I wanted to say to him, like, son, are you okay? Like, I don't drink a lot of caffeine. Every now and then, like if I'm really tired, I'll have like a diet soda and then I'll regret it for like 2 weeks because I'll be anxious, you know, afterwards. But that's what I imagine me chugging a Red Bull would be like, was Levis last year at the Super Bowl. He just wound so tight. And I remember I asked him a question. I'm like, you're not somebody who takes boredom very well, do you? He's like, no, I always feel like I need to be doing something. And so I remember talking about that after I watched the tape of the Tampa Bay game in 2023. And I was like, I can see on the film that Levis has anxiety. I have anxiety. But I can see on the tape. I can see it. And I remember people saying things like, you know, that's irresponsible of you to say on the radio. And that's, dude, again, I know it when I see it. There's an anxiety there, a fear of failure. And there's something that Master Yoda said in Star Wars that has stuck with me for a long time because I think it really dumbs everything down to the studs. And that is that fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to the dark side. And so when it comes to your mental place, and Levis talking about, it's probably, again, I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I do think there may be something there about his mental state being like, I was so afraid to fail, and I so wanted to be a starting quarterback that my head was in the wrong place because of that anxiety and that fear of failure and that I've got to do everything right now. But I found that to be a fascinating comment from Levis. And I just keep going back to those 20 weeks that he talked about when everybody around here, you people, gassed him up, distinguished gentleman, and everybody else, every true blue Titan fan. And I went to those Seahawks practices, and I remember saying, hey, if this practice was a real game, you would say Will Levis sucks and this team sucks. And people are like, it's just practice. You're negative. All you want to do is go find something out there. I'm like, I'm just telling you how I see it. And then we saw the season. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number. We'll get back to your phones next. 615-737-1025. Speaking of football, we have the Nashville Cats. Tune into Totally Hits 93.3 tomorrow as the Cats take on the Corpus Christi Tritons in Clarksville at F&M Bank Arena. Pregame starts at 4:30. Kickoff is at 5 with coverage also available on the Totally Hits 93.3 app and at totallyhitsnashville.com.
Jack, you didn't mess with Will Levis at first, right?
Don't do this. Don't do
You got the photo. You got the photo of him jumping over Tennessee, and it was kind of making me think. I was like, wait a minute.
No,
Jack was kind of before the draft happened.
Will, I'm Jack. Nice to meet you.
Tell him what happened.
Lifelong Titans fan. All right. So when you were not selected in the first round, I put out a tweet. And it was like, when you don't select Will in the first round, it's some like dumb dancing gif. And it was nothing against you. It was purely for the value play. The second round when we got you, I was
before
like,
that week though,
awesome.
on Bussin', you're like, I hope we don't get.
Well, I'm a Tennessee guy. I'm a Tennessee fan. So, previous season, it was fun to go back and forth. So you have a rival quarterback coming into Tennessee and, you want to have as much fun with it as possible. But when you got selected in the second round, and then when you had your first breakout game with the Titans, when you and D-Hop had those, like, Matt, what was it, 3 TDs, something like that, I did my due diligence, and in the parking lot afterwards, I said, I was wrong. And I said, I'm fully on the Levis train, and I want him to be as successful as he can, whether it's with the Titans or somebody else. So I'm fucking stoked. I've been singing your praises around town. I know you're going to be a dog out there. So, but it takes a man to admit when he was wrong.
I love that cut. Bussin' with the boys. They call out the producer. You didn't like Will Levis. I didn't. No. Don't do that to me, Will. You're a dog. I admit I was wrong. You're the man, Will Levis. And again, I don't know what Levis was talking about when he talked about his mental headspace not being right last season. Again, and when you live a public life, and he lives a public life, it is, I think, open to interpretation. Was it the girlfriend? Was it the new girlfriend? Was it the fact that the new girlfriend and the old girlfriend apparently are now girlfriends? Was it the mayonnaise commercials? Was it the pressure? Was it everybody gassing him up? Like, what are we talking about here? And I would like to know that, just out of curiosity more than anything else. But again, I go up to the fact that it's like, instead of learning, and Titans fans have been doing this with Cam now. Instead of learning from last year with the Levis thing, where everybody just anointed this guy a star when he was not that. Instead of saying, okay, let's take it slow, let's take it easy with the quarterback. Instead, everybody's like, oh, Cam, he's so good. And it's like, whoa. Easy now. 615-737-1025 and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Wes in Hermitage says Levis was upset that DeAndre Hopkins was partying with the dude that his ex ended up with. When D-Hop came out with Morgan Wallen, it was an awful look for DeAndre Hopkins. What's the deal with Morgan Wallen in this? That seems to be above my pay grade. I'm going to leave that one alone. Reed, I think we probably leave the Morgan Wallen thing alone there. I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Yeah, I'm not. I think Morgan has paid his penance.
One texter into the text. Well, I mean, he could have killed somebody by throwing that chair off of a balcony. I still have a problem with that. But again, that's different. One texter says, didn't know we were getting Dr. Phil today. Let's move on. You on the radio give me anxiety. First of all, let me say this. If you want Dr. Phil, I'll give you a Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, the two things I've taken from him. There's what I call the Dr. Phil interception, in which Dr. Phil will say, what were you thinking when you threw that pass? And Vince Young was the one that made me kind of believe in or make up the Dr. Phil interception. There used to be interceptions Vince Young would throw where there'd be two guys just standing there and Vince would just throw it right to him and the two guys were on the other team. And I would just see the replay, CBS would slow it down and I'd see the replay and I'd think, what were you thinking? Just like Dr. Phil. I'd bring somebody in there and, well, Dr. Phil, I stole a car today. What were you thinking? The other one is Dr. Phil will say, how's that working out for you? So those are my two Dr. Phils. You, the texter that doesn't want to hear Dr. Phil talk, sorry. Give me a break. One texter into the text line says, my first thought when hearing the Levis cut was that he's talking about having a broken heart. Bro, don't be blaming your love life on that terrible decision in Chicago. Holy cow, weirdo behavior. Reed, what do you make? Do you think it was broken heart from Will Levis?
I don't think it was a broken heart. I think it was women problems. Yeah, absolutely. Women women make the legs weak. Is that not what we learned from Rocky?
Well, I think it's fair to say, again, some of this stuff is private lives, but Will Levis is girlfriend is now famous, or at least Instagram famous, right? So she's like a famous person. So you think it was that he still loved Gia Duddy and that she had moved on? Or do you think it was that he loved the other girl and there were issues with that? The one from The Bachelor?
I think they both could bring anxiety into your life in different reasons, either in their absence or their presence in your life.
I mean, I'll just say this. If I could give advice to anybody out there, there's always another girl. This isn't Will Levis advice, but if Will needs it, we'll lay this out there for him. There's always another girl. I mean, I remember when I was in college and I had my heart broken. I think I was like 20 at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, there's not another person on this planet for me. And then I realized there was. There's always another person. There's always another match on Hinge. There's always another hottie at the bar. There's always another nurse. There's always another school teacher. There's always another TV reporter. There's always another Instagram famous model on OnlyFans. There's always another one, Will, and everybody else. But I will say this, it does sound like they were together for a long, long time. And then they end up breaking up. And, it's probably, I would assume, again, I don't know his life, but that could have been his first heartbreak. Hey, sometimes you'll get over stuff like that. But just know, there's always another girl. So, yeah, I guess we have kind of ventured a little bit into the Dr. Phil territory. But sometimes I think people need to hear that. One texter said, this year's team is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than last year's team, especially with all the traveling this season. I don't think that they have a lot of traveling this year. They're not going to Seattle or anything like that. I mean, I think there's a trip to Vegas and there's a trip to Phoenix this year. And the truth is, Vegas and Phoenix really aren't that far away. I mean, again, I haven't flown charter to Vegas and Phoenix. I have flown commercial to Vegas and Phoenix. Southwest, it's a very easy flight. So make of that what you will. Boy, a lot of people want to weigh in here on the Morgan Wallen stuff. I'm just going to say this with Levis when it comes to his mental headspace and everything else that everybody's talking about. What I will say is with Will Levis, I want to know more when it comes to why were you not yourself for those 20 weeks? But also your opportunity is gone. And so you just have to wait until the next opportunity. The good news is in the NFL, you'll usually get another opportunity. You'll usually get another crack. One texter says, I'm sure your girlfriend is thrilled to hear you say that there's always another woman. Let me tell you this right now. My girlfriend knows that I am here to help other people. And my advice for everybody else is not necessarily my advice for me. But I'm telling you, if you're in the shoes of Will Levis, if it was a heartbreak, as David Reed thinks it was women problems, when Will Levis says that he struggled for those 20 weeks last year, there's always another woman out there for you. I didn't say there's another woman out there for me. I just said there's always another woman out there for you. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, I have a hockey thought I want to get to. We'll do that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company on a Fireball Hockey Friday. It's 102.5, 106 for the game.
Bouchard at his own blue line directs a pass over to Ekholm. Florida makes the long change. Breaking free is Draisaitl to the net. Score! Leon Draisaitl has tied the series with his 4th OT winner in the playoffs. Final score, Edmonton 5, Florida 4 in overtime.
Yo, that was a call right there. I'm going to guess, Reed, that was the Oilers radio network if I had to take a guess.
I don't think I know for sure that's a dude who has a hernia this morning. That's all I know.
All I know is that when I was doing Sirius earlier today, and they have these updates in the middle of they have an update at the top of the hour, and they also have an update in the middle of the hour. And so I was listening to the update, and it was the Florida Panther call. And the Florida Panther call was like, and Draisaitl takes it into the right side, shoots it, he scores, and that will do it in game number 4. Leon Draisaitl of the Edmonton Oilers win by a final score of 5-4 in overtime. And the guy was like, and that was the Florida Panther call. It's like, got it. So last night, the Stanley Cup final, I thought was an absolute thriller. Now, it wasn't as if I was jumping up and down to watch game 4 of the Stanley Cup final. I watched it because it got me out of watching something that I didn't want to have to watch. And I think I can say this on the air, and I don't think Lindsay will get upset with me because she lived it. So last night, she wanted to watch some show on Netflix. Now, no disrespect, and we got to work on this as a couple, but we're not great right now at watching the same shows together. Some of the shows she likes, I don't really like. And again, I just watch random crap, and she doesn't like watching random crap. So we're going to have to figure this out at some point. But last night, she was like, can we watch my Netflix show, Ginny and Georgia? You familiar with this, Reed?
No.
Okay.
No.
So she wanted to watch her Netflix show, and I really wasn't in a position to say no. But I did say, you don't want to watch the Stanley Cup final? And the only reason I knew I had a shot with this was because she's Canadian. And everybody in Canada is rooting for Edmonton because Canada hasn't won a cup in forever. And so I was like, are you sure you don't want to watch the Stanley Cup final? And she's like, oh, well, I got to watch the Stanley Cup final. So we put on the game. And I knew in this game, like, hey, Stuart Skinner, the goalie for Edmonton, he is kind of, he's been shaky. He's definitely in the Pecorine 2018 pants crapping territory. And so I knew he was going to get the net. And I was like, okay, he's either hit or miss. He either gives up 7 goals or he pitches a shutout. And immediately, boom, 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 3-0 Florida. And I told Lindsay, I was like, it's over. I was like, you're not going to beat the Florida Panthers. Like, you're just, the Florida Panthers are stone cold killers. And I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm not rooting for a Canadian team. I'm not rooting against a Canadian team. If I had to say who I was rooting for, I guess I would say Edmonton just because I'd like McDavid to get one. But again, bang, 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 3-0, Skinner out of the game. If you go down 3-1, and I know they went down 3-0 last year, but if you go down 3-1 in the Stanley Cup final to this Florida team, it's over. So I was like, oh, well, it's over. Game's over. Playing the parade. On to, whatever's next. Tiddlywinks. The draft. Whatever. Now, I am aware that Edmonton has firepower with McDavid and Draisaitl in that power play, even though Hyman's not in there. But there's just something about the Florida Panthers. And at 3-0, I thought it was over. So at 3-0, I knew it was done. Then Edmonton scored. Then Edmonton made it 3-2. Now I started to think, oh, well, what if? Then Edmonton made it 3-3. And I thought, oh, my God, they're out of the hole. And when they scored with 6 minutes to go to make it 4-3, I said, oh, my God, they did it. The Edmonton Oilers have tied up this series. We are going to have a good, fun, exciting, competitive Stanley Cup final. Oh, my God, they did it. And then with 2:30 to go, boy, I felt like I was watching the Predators last night. With 2:30 to go, Bobrovsky goes to the bench, and Florida has the empty net. And I say I felt like I was watching the Predators because this was a very Predator thing, which is 2:30 to go. Other team pulls the goalie, and the Preds just do not get the puck on their stick. They do not get a look at the net. They get nothing. And so it is just hold on to your tush for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and hope that Pekka Rinne bails you out. And so I'm watching this, and I mean, it was quite the firepower from Florida. Now, they did get an icing, and Bobrovsky had to go back out there, but, you know, the game's ticking down. And I don't know how you guys watch hockey, but for me, like, I can follow the puck pretty well. The problem I have is when we get down to the end of the game and a team is 6-on-5 and they're passing around the perimeter looking for a shot. And so I'm watching the action, but I'm also like moving my head up to go look at the clock. So I'm seeing them pass the puck around, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, 23 seconds. Okay, now they're passing around. 21 seconds. Okay, now they're passing around. And when they scored, I was looking at the clock with 16 seconds, and I hear Kenny Albert say that they scored, and I'm like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And I knew Edmonton was dead. And I just said, that's the Florida Panthers. Stone freaking cold killers. Well, I'm going to admit something here. That goal happened at, I don't know, 9:48 at night, sometime around then. In fact, let me pull up my Twitter because I can tell you exactly, just based on my tweets, I can tell you exactly when this happened last night, where I said to myself, oh boy, 10:04. So at 10:04, Florida ties the game. And I tweeted out the Florida Panthers are just some stone cold killers. And then I went to bed. So I did not see the Draisaitl goal last night. It was too late for me. Sorry. I don't know if that makes me a bad sports fan or not, but I woke up this morning, saw Edmonton won. You know, the family, the Canadian and half Canadian, they seem to be very happy about that. And I was glad because I'm like, good, now we're going to have an exciting, you know, fun Stanley Cup final. But everything I thought last night, remember the old Sally rule that Floyd used to talk about? Just if you had an opinion, just do the opposite. We call it the Sally rule. And it felt like a total Sally rule game last night. I went into that. I predicted that Florida was going to win. Then when Edmonton gets down 3-0, I knew Florida was going to win. Then when Edmonton took the lead at 4-3, I knew Edmonton was going to win. Then when Florida tied the game at 4, I knew they were going to win. And each time I was wrong. But I thought that was an incredible hockey game last night. The ratings are not going to be very good, and I'm okay with that. Again, I think the big issue here when it comes to the radio or to the ratings, I think the big issue is that it's on cable. You know, the ratings are actually decent for Stanley Cup final games on cable. They are not good for the over-the-air broadcast, and they're nowhere near the NBA's ratings, which are not good for the NBA. But the ratings for the Stanley, it's just not going to be good. And I do wonder how many people are listening to this right now that are like, get back to football. Because the Stanley Cup final, it doesn't feature a preeminent organization. It doesn't feature the Rangers. It doesn't feature Boston. It doesn't feature the Blackhawks. It doesn't feature the Maple Leafs. And while it does feature a superstar in McDavid, you know, Magic Johnson had a take. Well, hold on. I want to get to the Magic Johnson thing in a second. But when it comes to McDavid, like, even though he's a freaking superstar, I mean, I'm not old enough to remember Wayne Gretzky other than playing the Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey on the N64. I'm not old enough to remember Wayne Gretzky, but I've seen people that have covered the sport long enough that have said, like, I covered Gretzky, and this dude, McDavid, he's better than Gretzky. And I would hope that that would lead to big TV ratings, but I don't think it's going to. Now, maybe if we get a close series like we had last year, that's going to pump it up some, but being on cable is going to hurt it. I've just shrugged it off and said, you know what? It's going to be a good final, and if people don't want to watch it, I'm not going to make them watch it. If people don't watch it and it's because they don't love hockey as much, that's fine. I like it. I love the series. Again, I'm not really sure who I'm rooting for. I guess I'm rooting for Edmonton, whereas in the NBA, I could tell you right now, I am rooting with my brains off for Indiana. But I did think last night's game, I did think that was a great game. Wasn't a good enough game for me to stay awake, but it was a good game. And here's the other thing, too, when it comes to the Stanley Cup final in the NHL. And I get it, but I think they need to do something about this. I can't do another intermission. So when you go to overtime, if it's not the Predators, I'm out. Like if it's a late night game and it's 10 o'clock and we got to wait 20 minutes and I got to see those bozos from TNT get up there on TV, I'm out. I'm just not interested. I'm not doing another halftime. I don't even like the original halftime as is, the fact that we have two of them in intermissions in hockey. I don't like that, but I can live with that. I cannot live with a third. So once they go down the tunnel, I mean, I'm sorry. I got a kid now. Click. Now, if it's the Predators, I'll adjust. But anybody else, I just cannot. I cannot stay up and wait the 20 minutes, and then they get out on the ice, and who knows how long they end up playing for. One texter says, you should talk about hockey more. It's a hell of a sport, tougher than football, more finesse than basketball, more speed than both sports combined. I love hockey. And I am convinced that the business model of the NHL is, and this is why, again, I hate the fact that the ratings are not better, because I would love for everybody to watch hockey and talk about hockey. But I think the business model for the NHL is this. On an individual team level, if you have a local team and your team is good, it is addicting. Like, we've been through that. I mean, in 2018, getting a Predators ticket was the hottest ticket in town. And no disrespect to us, but outside of the one time every 2 years Taylor Swift shows up, there really aren't a lot of shows or games where it's hard to get a ticket. Reed, would you back me up on that? That if you want to get a ticket in Nashville, it's pretty easy to get tickets.
Oh, yeah. Especially over by the interstate.
Yeah. But wouldn't you say, like, 2017, 2018, those were hard tickets to get?
Oh, yeah. And I had paid more for a ticket to a playoff game than I will ever acknowledge publicly.
I mean, there you go. So, I mean, like, when you've got a local team and the local team's good, it is addicting. But then it makes it tough when there are two teams that you don't care about that are playing each other. And it's just not going to be like the NFL, and that's okay. But I enjoy it. I am enjoying the Stanley Cup final. And so last night's game, I thought last night's game was wild. Speaking of the NHL, we'll get to more of your phone, 615-737-1025. There is another NHL story that I do want to talk about. I don't understand it. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game. Stillman and Company, it's a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Let's give something away. Why? Because I'm in a good mood. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you will score a pair of tickets to see Incubus performing Morning View and its entirety, plus the hits, with special guest Manchester Orchestra at Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, June 25th. Good luck on that one. So I was talking Stanley Cup final, and I am very excited about it. There's another hockey story I want to get to because I'm like, oh, hold on. Has anybody seen what's going on with the NHL and an expansion franchise in Atlanta? Now, this isn't Fulton County, which is Metro Atlanta, but this is the Metro Atlanta area, which apparently is Forsyth County. And a team that is looking for an expansion franchise has put in a bid for a $3 billion complex with an 18,000 seat arena. And so this guy's going to own the team. And they've got $3 billion for an arena and for a complex, hotels and restaurants and shops and everything else. And so arena, check. Owner with money, check. And that's really all the NHL cares about. Hey, are you going to write us a big fat check in order to join the league so that we can share the money amongst our owners? Yes. Okay. Do you have a building where you can make some money? Yes. But I have to ask, why are we doing the Atlanta thing in the NHL again? Do we really need the NHL back in Atlanta? It's already failed twice. The Calgary Flames and the Winnipeg Jets exist because hockey doesn't work in Atlanta. And somebody is going to say, well, that's when it's downtown and the season ticket base isn't there. It's more in the suburbs, like how the Braves moved from downtown to the suburbs, and this is the suburbs. And they already have arenas in Atlanta in the suburbs. There's an arena in Gwinnett. They already have that. I'm sorry, but Atlanta is the 8th largest media market in America. And the fan support for Atlanta teams, I hate to say it, it's not good. It's not a good sports town. And I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. You all know that. I mean, I've been to all the stadiums. I've been to the Dome. I went to the Georgia Dome. I went to Fulton County Stadium. I went to Turner Field. I've been to Truist Park. I've even been to the basketball arena for a Hawks game and an Atlanta Dream WNBA game. And that was before Caitlin Clark made the WNBA cool. Atlanta's a crappy sports town. They don't care about sports in Atlanta, period. Sorry. So if they get a hockey team, they're not going to care about this one either. And then they're going to go move to Quebec City or whatever. Just like they moved to Calgary, just like they moved to Winnipeg. Meanwhile, there are other cities that would like to have their first shot at an NHL team. Houston wants an NHL team. And I have no idea whether or not Houston would support an NHL team or not. I don't know. I don't know what the people of Houston care about. I don't know if you put them in the division with the Predators and they had an expansion, like, would that be a fun road trip to go to? Probably not. But at the same time, like, they haven't failed twice. Atlanta has failed twice. Like, what are we talking about? So, and again, I mean this with all due respect to Atlanta because, again, I'm a huge Braves fan. But it's a bad sports town. And when I lived in New Hampshire, I think the best thing for me is that what was so good for me was, like, I got to see Boston without being in Boston. I was on a small AM station in New Hampshire. It was like being in single A, but I could watch the major leagues in Boston. That's a good sports town. I mean, those people, they live and breathe it and die it, and their fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers and everything else. So New York, Chicago, Boston. Those are just great. Philadelphia, great sports towns. Dallas is a very good sports town. Miami, bad sports town. Bad sports town. They do not care. They do not need a baseball team in Miami. They have one. They don't need one. Honestly, and I know they're drawing well because they're really, really good. They don't need a hockey team either. Bad sports town. LA is, you have to have sports in LA because it's an entertainment capital. But at the same time, they don't care about sports in LA. Louisville, Kentucky, where I have lived. That, as far as sports are concerned, is more like a Boston, New York, Chicago in terms of the passion of the fans than Atlanta is. Atlanta's a bad sports town. I mean, the Braves were 14 straight division titles, Hall of Fame pitchers, couldn't sell out playoff games. It's a bad sports town. So why is the NHL interested in going back to Atlanta for the third time? They're going to do it. Why? So that one, again, came across my desk that I didn't think a lot of that made a lot of sense. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Justin says, it frustrates me that they moved away from a national broadcast for the Stanley Cup final. I don't pay for cable, so unless it's on regular television, I'm not able to watch it. I understand they are following the money, but it is horse manure that I can't enjoy it with everyone else. I understand that this station carried it, but listening to the game is hard for me unless it's a Preds game. I just don't follow the rest of the teams to know all the players or all the teams, so I get bored with wondering who has the puck. So I think a big reason they did this, this is going to sound tinfoil hatty. Reed, you give me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much of a tinfoil hat comment I'm about to make this will be. So just let me know here.
This is why they moved the games to cable.
Yeah, so this is why every couple of years TNT gets the Cup final, and why when they demanded this contract, TNT wanted it done this way and had to have the final. I believe they don't want you to go pay for cable. I mean, they don't care if you do because they'll get the money there. I think they want you to sign up for their streaming services.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Everyone
wants you
Max,
done with cable.
If you sign up for HBO Max, you don't have to have cable. You get the games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why they put the game. That's not why the NHL put the games on cable. The NHL put the games on cable because of the money, but that's why TNT is demanding put the games on cable.
No, I believe you're 100% correct on this one.
Okay, so I was wondering if that was a.
You put the hat away.
Greg in Clarksville just says, no. That place has 2 bad teams and have moved and left that bad area. No. So some people will argue that the Atlanta suburbs are better for having teams. I mean, didn't we try this with the Phoenix suburbs? Like, didn't every Phoenix suburb get a crack at the Arizona Coyotes? And it just didn't work. I do wonder, is Phoenix a good sports town? That I haven't spent enough time there. I would guess to say no, but I don't know. But Atlanta, I know enough about Atlanta. Atlanta is a bad sports town. One texter says, Houston is the 4th largest city in the U.S., so if Tampa can support a hockey team, so can Houston. Well, that's how I used to feel about the Atlanta Braves when they wouldn't spend money. You know, Ted Turner used to spend all that money, and I loved it. And then the Atlanta Braves, they wouldn't spend any money. And it was like, oh, no, we can't afford Tom Glavine anymore. Oh, no, we can't afford Greg Maximo. Oh, no, we can't afford Gary Sheffield. Oh, no, we can't afford because Time Warner owns the team. We're not spending any money. I'm like, this is Atlanta. This isn't a small market team. But they acted like it was a small market team.
Houston has or had an AHL team at one point, and I went to a game down there one time, and there was probably close to 12,000 people there on like a Thursday night.
One texter says, as a former resident of Houston, I can assure you that the city would go crazy for an NHL team. They support the Rockets and the Astros, whether they are good or not. It's the 4th largest city in the U.S., so media market is there. It also is rich with oil and shopping money, so selling suites would be no problem. I mean, again, I don't think the Houston Texans have much of a fan base, but I also wouldn't say that, like, when the Titans go and play there, that it looks on TV like, God, nobody's there. When the Titans go and play Jacksonville, that's another bad sports town. When the Titans go and play Jacksonville, it's like, holy crap, does anybody know there's a game today? I went to a Braves-Marlins game a couple years ago in Miami. You know, they built that just ginormous stadium. And I went to a Braves-Marlins game, and walking outside the stadium, going into the stadium, you could not tell that there was a game in there. There was no idea, no clue that there was a game there. One texter says that's why the Braves are 15 games back now. They didn't spend any money. True. 615-737-1025. That's our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caroline Fenton chimes in and says, as she takes a break from breaking down LSU's week 1 schedule, she says Phoenix is a bad sports town. That doesn't surprise me. You know, like, what are secretly good sports towns? I'm going to tell you a good sports town. Cincinnati. That is a good sports town. Cincinnati, good sports town. Buffalo, good sports town. I don't know what makes a sports town a good sports town. I can just tell you Atlanta's a bad one. Cincinnati's a good one. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I want you to be honest with me, Titans fans. I want you to be honest. I want us to be totally and completely everything on the table, fair and honest. And if you could promise to do that, stay with us. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Strowman. Batting second, the designated hitter, number 27, Giancarlo Stanton.
Stillman and Company 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing and Heating and Air Conditioning Game Nashville. What's that?
Sorry?
You okay there, Reed?
Just clear my throat.
We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So I saw something when I got off the air yesterday that, again, remember how I prefaced and teased this segment? I said we're going to have an honest discussion. If you can't be honest, change the channel. Reed, how many people do you think are still listening, or how many people do you think change the channel? Because I said if you can't be honest, change the channel.
So if we're talking about Titans fans and honesty, if they can't be honest, they need to change. There's no Titans fans listening right now.
So my theory is that nobody changed the channel because everybody thinks they can be honest. Can they? We shall see. So yesterday I got off the air and I saw on Twitter, I follow Buck. I love Buck. Buck had a tweet. I'm having a tough time tempering my excitement for Cam Ward. And I could not help myself. But I had to quote tweet. And I had to say, well, you had a hard time tempering your excitement for Will Levis last year. I mean, I remember talking to Buck last year, and I was like, they need to fire Rand Carthon. This guy is totally out in la-la land. He has no idea what he's... And Buck's like, they're banking it all on Levis. They think it'll work with Levis, and they'll look like geniuses. What? And so... Again, we played the cut earlier today from Bussin' with the Boys, where the Bussin' with the Boys producer was basically on his hands and knees kissing Will Levis's feet last year before the start of training camp or the start of the season. And so when it comes to Cam Ward, I'm getting a bunch of, Cam Ward is our guy, Jared, you're a hater. And when he says something crazy like, oh, my confidence is a 10 out of 10 and I could throw 4 interceptions and it'd still be a 10 out of 10. And you people go, yeah, confidence, Cam SZN, yeah. I'm like, do you remember last year? Do you remember what you went through last year? Again, to me, this is where the honesty needs to come into play. Where were you this time last year on Will Levis? Did you think Will Levis is going to be the man? You will see, because I know every one of you out there who roots for the Tennessee Titans has friends who do not root for the Tennessee Titans. And I know that every single one of you out there, when it comes to Will Levis, had somebody tell you as a fan of the Tennessee Titans, bro, your quarterback sucks. And they told you that before last year. I remember talking to a former general manager, and I said, what is the deal with the people of this town? And the former general manager said to me, yeah, I think it's a lot stronger of how they feel about him in the town than it is around the country. I mean, again, last year, you look at the Vegas odds, they said Titans going to suck. I mean, I remember every time there would be one of those way too early mock drafts, and they'd have the Titans drafting Carson Beck. And it was like, oh, why does ESPN hate us so much? And I went through all of that last year with you guys. And I remember when Mariota had his first start. And I did what a lot of you people did, where I did not want them to draft Mariota. They drafted Mariota. I think I was 25 years old at the time. I did not want them to draft Mariota. They drafted Mariota. I went to one training camp practice, watched him throw an absolute dime into the back corner of the end zone for Delaney Walker, and I was like, he's the man. His first start against Tampa Bay, he had the best start in the history of the NFL for a rookie. And I said to myself, people keep saying, well, it's only one game, but what if he is our Tom Brady? What if he is our Aaron Rodgers as a Titan fan? Well, a week later, they lost to Johnny Manziel in Cleveland. I learned why everybody else said pump the brakes. Easy now. And so, when it came to Levis, he had the same first game Mariota had. There are 3 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that have thrown for 4 touchdowns in their debut. Fran Tarkenton in the Hall of Fame, Mariota, a backup, Levis, a backup. That's it. So when Levis had that great game, I did not get too excited. Levis followed that up with a very impressive performance with some throws, other throws maybe not so much, but had a very impressive performance on Thursday Night Football the next week against the Steelers. But at no point was I like, franchise quarterback. Levis had that comeback against Miami in which he brought him back down by 14, and I said, this tells me he can do it. It's not going to tell me if he's going to be the guy or not, but in order to be the guy, you have to have the ability to be the guy. So let's see. But I never got too gassed for Levis one way or another. I kept saying this can go either way. He has the physical talent and the tools to be a successful quarterback. But at the same time, he's also kind of a dope. And I hate to say it, but you need to be smart in order to play quarterback in the National Football League. And 2 games into last year, I knew, no, he ain't the guy. But this time last year, it was, you're the guy. He's the guy. We got a franchise quarterback. I remember when we did the Stillman and Company mock draft simulations. And in one of them, Drake May fell to the Titans with the 7th pick. And so we had a topic that was, if Drake May falls, because there was some chatter that maybe Drake May was rubbing teams the wrong way or was going to fall or whatever. And I said, if Drake May falls to the Titans at 7, what do you do? Tim Hasselbeck came on the midday show and said, if he falls to 7, you draft him, and then you get rid of Levis. And the amount of texts and calls we got that were, no. Why would you draft Drake May when you have Will Levis? Now, let's go to Cam. At the beginning of the draft process, a lot of you people, again, we're all being honest here, a lot of you people said this quarterback class sucked. We talked about trading the pick. We talked about Travis Hunter. We talked about Abdul Carter. We talked about all of it at the beginning of the draft process. Then when it became abundantly clear that the Tides were going to take Cam, I started to feel the tide of the fan base with the, he's the best guy. He's really good. If he wasn't that good, why would the Giants want him? But now I feel like it's almost become cartoonish. You hear something like Cam shows up for work at 5 a.m. All these guys show up early in the morning. All of them. Matt Ryan was up early in the morning and finished his workout by 6 a.m. And one of the assistant general managers said to Matt Ryan, man, you're here early. He says, yeah, when you've been in the league this long, it's wired into your DNA. Again, it's good that Cam shows up early, but I remember last year when Will Levis's car was in the parking lot, first guy here for training camp, Titans posted it, you people. So I have to ask this question when it comes to Cam Ward. And yes, I am aware that Cam Ward and Will Levis are different people. And yes, Cam Ward's a better player than Will Levis. But if you felt this way about Will last year, why are you people feeling the exact same way about Cam now? This is why people need time after they go through a massive breakup before jumping into another relationship. Because you need to heal. And it takes time. Instead, Titan fans have jumped from one lottery ticket to the next lottery ticket, and they're not just hoping that the guy plays well. It's almost like they're expecting it. I mean, I'm sorry. Cam Ward threw 2 interceptions yesterday in training, in mini camp. He threw 1 interception the one day that he went 20 of 21, and everyone goes, ah! And again, he threw an interception, 3 picks in 3 days for Cam Ward. J.J. McCarthy did something similar in Minnesota. And again, I don't think it's a big deal that he threw the interceptions, and I don't think it's a big deal that J.J. threw the interceptions, but J.J. threw interceptions in minicamp, and it's like, did they draft the wrong guy? So again, I'm asking all of us out there, let's be intellectually honest here. Did you this time last year, all the positivity, all of the he's our guy that you have right now with Cam Ward, did you have that same feeling for Will Levis? Did you feel that way? Because I would ask you, if you did feel that way, Why are you doing the same thing with this guy just to get your heart broken again if that's in fact what happens? I'd rather be pessimistic, him become Patrick Mahomes, and then say, oh, thank God we got the guy. I don't want to put these expectations on Cam Ward. I don't want to expect him to go out there in Denver with a new offensive line and light it up. And yet, that seems to be where we keep going. 615-737-1025. Your phones, will get to them. Plus, I have to rip our program director who sent out a tweet that I just so completely disagree with. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
What would you say your confidence level is before this break heading into training camp?
10.
You ever at a 4 or a 5 or a 6, and when did you get to 10?
Nah, I'll probably never get that low, even if I, throw a 4-book game this year. At the end of the day, I'm a gunslinger. I live by that. I always die by it. So, Coach Callahan know what type of guy he has in the quarterback room and me. And so, I'm just thankful that I got guys around me to help me out, along with BA, Brandon and Will. The Tim in there, they help me out a lot, just getting me right with the protections. Then also the receiving core, they're going to be able to, compliment my game a lot.
What's your confidence level like, Cam Ward? As the late, great Billy Bob in Varsity Blues would say, a 10. A freaking 10. I guess that's his confidence. He's never done it before, but he's just super confident. Again, I just think it's ridiculous to say that your confidence is a 10. Oh, I could throw 4 interceptions and my confidence would be a 10. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions in a playoff game. Ryan Tannehill had $200 million in the bank. Ryan Tannehill's a great guy. $200 million in the bank. He's got this great house in Florida. He's got this massive boat he can drive down to the Bahamas whenever he wants. And Ryan Tannehill ended up in therapy because of the 3 interceptions he threw. Now, you mean to tell me that Cam Ward, who's never played football, has more confidence than Ryan freaking Tannehill? You see where that becomes a little ridiculous? So I thought that comment was ridiculous. And then I thought Cam Ward's comments about his interception in 7-on-7 was a little ridiculous when he said that, well, that doesn't count. 7-on-7 is not real football. And the reason I bring this all up before we get to your phones is because our program director, Chase McCabe, sent out a tweet at 2:40 today. I started the show by getting on you people. And I had to get on you people today. But I started by getting on you people because apparently I'm the bad guy for pointing out that it's ridiculous to say you're 10 out of 10 when it comes to confidence, that you could throw 4 interceptions and you'd still be confident. It's borderline disrespectful to the game that you think it's that easy just to confident. And Chase sent out a tweet because every now and then when someone gets pissed off, they'll text in or they'll call in and say, I know that this is June, so you guys are looking for something to talk about. No. We talk about Jeffrey Simmons pouting every month out of the year, not just June. Chase tweeted out at 2:40 today. It's funny I'm saying this because of my job, but I can tell it's June by turning on the radio. I'm sorry. I have to be honest. I'm offended. And I'll tell you why I'm offended. Number one, Chase knows how this works. And I don't even, again, the way that I think lazy and non-talented sports radio hosts view it, where it's like, oh, it's the summer. Oh, it's so awful when there's no football games being played. I actually enjoy it. To me, it allows me to kind of be a little bit more creative. Again, we would have never talked about Atlanta being a bad sports town last hour with them trying to get their 3rd NHL team if, the Titans were playing a game tomorrow. And you all know that. But here's what bothers me. I don't care if it's June, October, August, December, February, Christmas Day. If the Titans quarterback says something stupid, it is a topic. And when Cam Ward says something stupid, like I'm 10 out of 10 confident, I could throw a 4-book game, which I guess that means interception. I could throw a 4-book game and I'd still be confident. That's stupid. It shows me an arrogance level, a lack of understanding about how hard it's going to be to become a franchise quarterback. When you say 7-on-7 doesn't matter because it's not real football, then what are you there for? What are you doing? You just wasting your time? Just twiddling your thumbs? Or are we out here to get better so that when you play Denver in week 1, you won't try to throw right into the hands of the middle linebacker? Because unlike 7-on-7, the other team will have guys that can hit you. 7-on-7, by the way, is not, when it comes to quarterback, it is not less advantageous for a quarterback than, say, real football. So to me, this is not a June topic. This is a quarterback said something stupid topic, and that's always going to be discussed around here. Remember when Will Levis said that he was worried about DeMario on the New York Jets, and we were running the press conference live, and I sat there and I heard him say DeMario, and I looked up and I used the talkback button to say to Ian, who's DeMario? And then I went through the entire Jets roster, and there wasn't a DeMario on the team. And we laughed and we laughed, but it was a real red flag with Levis because it showed he wasn't really prepared, making up players on their team. Oh, Jared, he got confused. Yeah, well, if he had watched enough tape, he probably wouldn't get confused about DeMario. That was September when there's football and there's games to be played. And to me, Cam Ward said something stupid. It doesn't matter. He's the quarterback. Quarterback says something stupid. Quarterback says something that I find to be disrespectful to the game. It's arrogant to say, oh, I'll be confident no matter what. I'm Brett Favre. I'm a gunslinger. Easy there, cowboy. So I got to rip Chase's tweet because I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's June radio. Again, that is if you want to give negative connotations to June radio, which I don't want to do. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just reality. Quarterback says something ridiculous. It gets talked about. 737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter, Sean, says there's no bigger Will Levis hater than Chad Withrow. He tried to tell everybody that Levis was a bum. I'd like to know what Chad's opinion on Cam Ward is. Chad will join us at 5 o'clock, so you will be listening for that. And I do agree with you. Chad is the biggest Will Levis hater on the planet, and I believe that it's because Will Levis went to Tennessee. I mean, I went to Kentucky, and Chad, loves Tennessee. One texter says, your show after Levis threw 4 touchdowns was you saying over and over, we've got ourselves a quarterback. Go back and listen to the audio or the video. You thought the Titans had a franchise quarterback with Will Levis. I never thought the Titans had a franchise quarterback with Will Levis. I know exactly what I said after the Atlanta Falcons game. First off, I thought the big throw down the sideline to DeAndre Hopkins, and I watched it. I thought it was brutal offensive pass interference. Secondly, this was right when we got our hands on the AI software so that we could, manipulate voices and do all kinds of crazy crap. And I had Chase make a cut. We had the intro of Law and Order. In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups. The police, who investigate crime, and the district attorneys, who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories. And so we took that voice and we had we ended up running something that was along the lines of, in the history of the National Football League, there have been 2 separate yet very different quarterbacks who have thrown for 4 touchdowns in their first career start. Fran Tarkenton, who is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Marcus Mariota, who is a bust. These are their stories. So I'm telling you right now, I was never he's a franchise guy. I was I remember when Amy did that video and she's like, we got a young quarterback. And I was like, whoa now. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa now. Andrew. Titans fans get excited about their new quarterback and Jared Stillman yells, quit having fun. No, I'm saying don't set yourself up for the disappointment you had last year with Will Levis. Take it all in stride. And I mean this in all seriousness. We were talking about Dr. Phil earlier today. When it comes to this chatter, when it comes to the, hey, we want to be excited about our young quarterback, I got it. But if you were burned last year, then wouldn't you maybe not put your hand on the stove this year? And it's like, nope, we want to put our hands on the stove, Jared. Okay. But I don't know why your opinion hasn't changed. I loved Vince Young. I thought it was right from Steve McNair to Vince Young. And there was nothing that could stop Vince Young. And then they drafted Mariota. And I thought, you know what? He's a franchise quarterback. And if you're an OG Jared and the GM listener, you remember I was all in on Marcus, even after Marcus, right up until he got benched. Now, I'm cautious when it comes to young quarterbacks. Because I know how difficult it is for these guys to succeed, and I know what the odds they won't are. So I'm sorry. But it's not about quit having fun. It's about, hey, let's be realistic here. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 again.
Chad, if you spin it back to Miami's pro day, Cam, he rolls out, throws to Restrepo, and he says to you guys, I solidified it. What does that say about his confidence, and how much did that kind of resonate with you that he, in the middle of the workout, took the time to send that message?
Yeah, I think you got to get to know Cam to understand that, his personality. I think we enjoyed it. It was a cool moment. Cam's he's confident. I wouldn't say he's cocky. I think there's a fine line between the two, and he carries himself the right way. I just appreciate the way he approaches the game, his competitiveness, and just the way he plays the game with a quiet mind and the confidence that he has. I think that's been impressive.
There you go. That was Chad Brinker. When he said that, I didn't really know a lot about Cam Ward other than just this, draft chatter, studying, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, okay, confident but not cocky. I like that. Then Cam Ward got up there and said his confidence was 10 out of 10. And then can we get that 7-on-7 one about the interceptions? This one is the one that really pissed me off. This was yesterday after practice. Cam threw a couple of interceptions, and this was Cam talking about his picks.
So we hadn't seen many picks from you in the offseason. Today there are a couple. What do you learn maybe from a day and from maybe a couple of picks like that?
The first one, 7-on-7, I don't count that. It's not real football. I'm glad I threw it to Cody. That was 6 points for my team. So, the second one, I should have sidearmed it. I don't know why I did some generic stuff. And really just getting better off the film. Got to continue to move backwards with my eyes. And then really just, playing clean football, especially in the red zone. I have to take care of the ball. I'm aware of that. But, I'd rather do all the crazy stuff in practice. So in the game, I know I can get away with.
As Bill Belichick says, practice execution equals game day success. This idea that, it's just practice, or, that wouldn't count 7-on-7. That just really, really pissed me off. Just really disrespectful for how hard this game is. I'm sorry. So when Brinker says he's confident but not cocky, I hear that. I'm like, I think he might be a little cocky. One texter says, I had a spark of hope for Levis after the Falcons game, but as an avid listener to you, Mr. Stillman, I knew to be cautious. You are the king of pessimism, but you're right a lot. So here's what I'm going to say about being right and being wrong, because I have gotten plenty when it comes to Cam Ward of you liked Anthony Richardson. And that is true. And I think that if I was a general manager, going back to that, I was in love with the talent that Anthony Richardson had. And at this point in time, the best quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, had a lot of talent, but they had to grow him into being a starting quarterback. Josh Allen had a lot of talent, but they had to develop him, and it took time. And they developed these guys. Well, when it came to Anthony Richardson, I said, if you develop him, he's going to be a superstar. After his first game, Trevor Lawrence went up to him, and you know how the quarterbacks shake it out and everything else. And Trevor Lawrence said to him, in that moment, hey, dude, good game. You can't take the hits that you took in college in this sport. Just protect yourself. It's just not the same as college. And I know that because Trevor Lawrence was asked about it after the game, and he said, I told him, great game. Can't wait to watch him play, but be careful and protect yourself because the hits you take now are not the same as the hits in college. About a month later, Anthony Richardson got concussed, missed a game. Then they put Anthony Richardson back out there. That's when Harold Landry hit him, and it ruined his shoulder. Anthony Richardson this week has gone back to look at the doctor who did the first shoulder surgery to look at it again. I didn't think Anthony Richardson should play his first year in the league. And people are like, well, you can't sit a high pick. Andy Reid did. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy too, is you guys want Mahomes and you want McNair, but then I bring up, hey, let's bring Cam along slowly, sit him on the bench because I think that gives him the best chance to be successful. And it's no. So you won't do what they did for Mahomes. You won't do what they did for Lamar Jackson. You won't do what they did for Steve McNair, but you expect Mahomes, McNair, and Lamar Jackson. And you can say I'm the king of pessimism, but the Titans are the worst team in the league. They're the worst team in the league. So all those reasons that I was pessimistic, the right tackle position, I hate to say it, but let's just tell it like it is. One texter says, You literally sound like you've never competed in your life. You have to be confident to get to this level. See, I don't understand this. This idea of, okay, well, I want my quarterback to be confident. You have to be confident to get to the NFL. Again, Ryan Tannehill led a team to the AFC Championship game. Ryan Tannehill was the starting quarterback of a team that had the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. Ryan Tannehill has $200 million in the bank. And that's $200 million that he earned. It's not like his daddy was a venture capitalist and gave him a loan to start his own venture capitalist company. And so now Tannehill Industries is, no, he earned it. And you guys remember Ryan Tannehill in the Cincinnati game. To act as if confidence is not fluid and that confidence does not go up and down and that every player who makes it to the pros is confident all the time is ridiculous. Reed, can we play that Will Levis cut from yesterday? The one where Levis was talking about where his head was last year? Because when it comes to confidence, this is the guy last year that I'm telling you, if you had asked him, he would have said he was 10 out of 10 confident too. And so were you and him. Play the cut.
One thing I've kind of learned the hard way is there's no way to play your best ball if you have other things that, you let kind of affect your mind and your mental. And I had to learn that and work through that throughout the season. Was able to have people around me to support me and get me back into that right mindset. And it's really hard when you're in the mix of things and in the fire, like during a season. But I really, for the first time after the season, was able to kind of sit back, collect myself, realize that the mind space that I was in, that those 20 weeks was not me. And I felt like I used that time to get back to base. And I'm not quite ready to talk on all of that quite yet, but it just wasn't in the right spot. And it's hard to pull yourself out of that when you're in the thick of it like that. And I'm glad that I was able to afterwards.
To get to the pros, you must have confidence. You must be a 10 out of 10. Here's Will Levis. Yeah, last year my head wasn't in the right place. You think he would have told you that, by the way, when he was on set filming a mayonnaise commercial? No, I don't think so. Again, it's funny. We played the Belichick cut from his book about confidence, in which Belichick basically goes, people now talk about confidence like it's something you can go to the store and buy. It's not. I can't tell you I can't tell you how to be confident, but I can tell you where confidence comes from. Basically dispelling the notion that, you can just tell yourself to be confident. We play the cut from the Belichick book. And granted, I'll be the first to admit, and I said this when we first started playing those Belichick book cuts, I was like, this thing is like melatonin. But I say this because if you were looking at a quarterback, you owned the Falcons, and you're evaluating quarterbacks, and Bill Belichick is telling you, hey, this is actually how confidence works. I know Bill loves his girlfriend, and it's all kinds of screwed up, but wouldn't you take Bill's advice? Again, if Bill told me draft this guy, not that guy, I'd be like, Bill, your track record's not very good. But if Bill's telling me about, no, this is what real confidence is, as opposed to this manufactured, I'm just saying it, would you not listen to Belichick? I would. One texter says, I remember being 17 during the 06 draft and reading an article by Skip Bayless saying that Vince Young and Lindell White were the next Steve McNair and Eddie George. Fell for all the hype. Yikes. That comes from Jeff in Nebraska. That kind of reminds me of Frank Wycheck said that. And Frank Wycheck said with Vince Young and Steve McNair, the Tennessee Titans have drafted the next Steve McNair and Eddie George, and I'm with you. I felt the exact same way. I did. I was all in, man. I was like, this is going to be great. You do know the story of how they drafted Lindell White, right? Reed, do you know the story of how they drafted Lindell White?
Yes.
They had called Devin Hester. They had called, hey, Johnny, it's Jared Stillman with the Tennessee Titans. How are you? Oh, Coach, I'm good, man. Yeah, man. Hey, I was wondering, you want to be a Tennessee Titan? Oh, absolutely, Coach. I can't wait. All right, I'm going to turn it over here to Coach Johnny. He's going to take care of you. Thanks, man. We'll see you. So they had Devin Hester on the phone. And at the last minute, Jeff Fisher, Norm Chow, somehow, some way convinced them to take Lindell White. I bought the hype too with Lindell White. Devin Hester is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So depressing. So depressing. One texter says, talk about a puff piece question for Ward about they should ask what his scale of 1 to 10 in his confidence is. A juicier question would have been, how do you feel like Callahan is preparing you out of 10? Since he's going to be honest and let some juice going, especially when they get housed and start 0-3. I do wonder if Cam Ward starts off 3-0. I am scared to death of this Denver game. I'll tell you right now, if I was the coach, Brandon Allen start the Denver game. I think I'd let Cam sit the first 2 weeks. Well, we want to make sure he's ready, which would really be my code word for I'm not letting him get lit up at Denver. But I'm scared to death of this Denver game. He goes out there, plays like I think they're going to play at Denver. How confident? 1 to 10. I'd have a hard time. And you same people are going to be like, oh, he can't be a 10. He stinks. Same way you were with Levis. One texter says, I thought Devin Hester was the Pac-Man Jones draft. He was not. And boy, Pac-Man, he could return kicks too. 615-737-1025. Magic Johnson said something yesterday that I didn't think I was going to make it into a topic, but it stuck with me yesterday and it's still with me today. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Define a superstar.
A person who can go on the road and sell the building.
There we go. That should be. It's a simple definition.
Simple. I'm going to see that person, right?
So you ain't talking skill on the court. That's it. You talk about
draw. Stephen A.
You got to be
Magic's in town. You're going to the game.
Yeah, a superstar got to say, man, or you running home from the office and saying, oh, I got to see him on TV, right? And that's what Larry Bird, people running home, right? Charles Barkley, people running home. Shaq, people running home. Kobe, people running home. And then, of course, the greatest that's ever played, Michael Jordan, people going running home to see him, or they're trying their best to get into the arena to see that brother play. That's a superstar who could go on the road and sell the building out.
Okay, I've been thinking a lot about this. So this was not something that I thought was going to be a topic. Like, I thought I was, I saw Magic Johnson on First Take. They asked him, hey, what's the definition of superstar? Magic Johnson says to sell the building out on the road. And I thought, that's interesting. I mean, that's probably more compact and more direct than anybody else's definition that I've ever heard. And God bless the NBA, because only in the NBA would we have this kind of talk. Like, are Tyrese Halliburton and SGA good enough superstars? We'll take your calls. But for the last 2 days, I've been thinking about this. I don't know what that says about me, that, again, this has been in my brain, but I thought about Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. We did the show from Atlanta about a month ago, outside of the ballpark when the Dodgers were in town. And I don't know how many tickets were sold. It was a packed house, but I don't think it was like a sellout, or it was like the hardest ticket to get with Shohei Ohtani going to Atlanta. And yet at the same time, I thought to myself, well, Shohei Ohtani is definitely a superstar. He is absolutely a superstar. Aaron Judge is a superstar. But when they went to Kansas City this week, was every ticket impossible to get? And so I thought in my head, again, Magic Johnson, the one thing that Magic Johnson has that not everybody else does is Magic was a go sell the road out building kind of guy. So it's like, hey, Magic can talk the talk because he walked the walk. But how many guys out there are so good that they sell out an opposing building? And here's what I came up with today, just thinking about this. Again, this has been on my mind for the last couple of days since Magic said it, and I've been thinking a lot about it. Messi sells out the opposing building. Remember last year when Messi came here, or 2 years ago, or whenever it was, when Messi came here for a soccer game? It was like the biggest soccer game, biggest thing Nashville ever had since Michael Jordan showed up for a minor league baseball game. LeBron James, LeBron sells out the opposing building. When LeBron comes to town, my late Uncle Brad, I love that man, but my late Uncle Brad passed away in 2018. He was a die-hard Atlanta Hawks fan. Die-hard. They got the mascot to go to his 70th birthday or whatever in Atlanta. And my Uncle Brad had season tickets to the Hawks and to the Falcons. And he told me late in life, I think this is when my grandmother passed away, he told me, he's like, yeah, I only go when it's like LeBron or Kobe or like that's it now. But he had season tickets to the Hawks and he would always go see LeBron. And I think we can all agree LeBron sells out the building. Mahomes, we've seen what it's like here at Nissan Stadium when Mahomes shows up, and it's Chief jerseys everywhere. And Caitlin Clark. And there's no doubt. The WNBA's viewership has dropped by 50% since Caitlin Clark got hurt. So I think there's no disputing Messi, LeBron, Mahomes, and Clark. Reed, would you agree with that? They sell out the opposing team's building.
Yes.
Is there anybody else that sells out another team's building, that blows up the television ratings, that does what those guys and Caitlin Clark do? I don't think so. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Ohtani and Aaron Judge aren't superstars. And the one that really got me was Connor McDavid, because I think I've been to 10 Connor McDavid games in his career, all against the Predators. I actually take that back. I went to game 5, I think, of the Cup final last year. And I was down in the locker room chatting with Matthias Ekholm after the game, and Connor McDavid came up and like started saying something in his ear. And that was like a moment where the small little conversation that Ekholm and I were having, that was over because Connor McDavid had something he wanted to say. So I guess I've been to one non-Predators Connor McDavid game, but I've been to a bunch of Connor McDavid games. I do not miss, if I can help it, a Connor McDavid game at Bridgestone Arena. But at the same time, I know what a hard ticket is when it comes to sports in Nashville. And I mean, again, Reed and I were talking about earlier today about 2017, 2018, about how the Predators were the hardest ticket in town to get. It's not as if there's like some sort of super demand for Edmonton tickets. And I know it's Edmonton, but it's like if we're using the Magic Johnson logic, if Caitlin Clark played a WNBA game at Bridgestone Arena, it'd sell out.
What about Steph Curry?
Steph, I think, sells out buildings. Like if you make kids cry because you're load managing a game and their parents can only afford that one game to go see you play, and you break that little kid's heart, and we've seen that with Steph, you're a superstar. So add him to the list. But I don't think Durant, and I think Durant's a superstar, but again, by Magic's definition, I don't think Durant sells out the opposing buildings. At least not anymore. A bunch of people are saying Tiger Woods in the text line. Tiger Woods is an old pawpaw now at this point. He's kind of, his day of superstardom's over. I mean, look, Babe Ruth sells out opposing buildings too, but unfortunately, Babe's no longer with us. I just can't, again, and this is so stupid for me to be thinking about this as much as I've been thinking about this over the last 2 days. I hear what Magic is saying. And the Bengals do bring a lot of fans when they come to town, but they don't sell out the building. But you can't tell me that Joe Burrow is not a superstar. You can't tell me that Josh Allen is not a superstar. But again, it's not like a Bills ticket. Now, Bills tickets are always hard to get because the Bills have so many fans, but it's not as if the Bills coming to town is like, oh my God, it's impossible to get a seat. The only players that have done that where, in recent years, let's say since they changed the uniforms, the only players that have had that effect where I'm sitting there in the crowd and I'm like, yo, this is wild. There are 3 teams: Kansas City Mahomes, Brady New England, and the Eagles after they won the Super Bowl. And the Eagles, it's more about the team and the brand and the city than I think it is about, the stars of the Eagles. I don't think all those people were there to see Carson Wentz. One texter says, add Cristiano Ronaldo to the list. Yeah, I'm talking about USA, but I hear you on that one. One texter says, I don't think Magic should have said superstar. He should have used the term face of the league. Again, this is Magic Johnson's definition of a superstar. And I'm not saying that because Magic Johnson said it, that's what the definition of a superstar is. I'm just telling you that is the most compact definition of a superstar I've ever heard. Chad Withrow joins us next on the program. Somebody asked earlier, he was the biggest Will Levis hater there ever was. Let's see what he thinks of Cam Ward. We'll get into that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. I am in, by the way, on the NBA Finals. Amin Al-Hassan will join us in about 30 minutes or so. But it is 5 o'clock on a Friday, which means Chad Withro, who is presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business, from Outkick, joins us now on the program. Chad, let me start with this. I have pissed a bunch of Titans fans off. Does that surprise you?
Does not surprise me in the least. And I think I know exactly why you pissed them off.
Is it because I said it is impossible for Cam Ward to be 10 out of 10 when it comes to his confidence, and for him to say, I could throw 4 interceptions in a game and I'd still be a 10 out of 10 confidence? That is ridiculous and impossible, and apparently I'm the bad guy. Your thoughts?
So I think you've made a grave error in this one. And here's where you've made the grave error. You care about what people are saying before things are happening. Things aren't happening right now. Okay. So I know we have to dissect everything that's said, but I'm more about what people do and less about what they say. I become about what people say after they do. So here's what I mean by that. When Cam Ward throws 4 picks against Denver, if that happens, I'm going to be very interested in what he says and how he handles that with his team moving forward and how he handles that with the media. Now, when we're talking about nothing actually happening right now and him saying he's a 10 out of 10, I think that is a guy who is entering the league, who is very confident, by the way, and I'm fine with that. And I've heard you compare him to Vince Young. Here's the difference. This dude is showing up early and leaving late. Vince Young kept banker's hours. That's why he didn't succeed in the NFL. It wasn't because of a lack of talent. It wasn't because of a lack of college success or experience. It was because he kept banker's hours. Cam Ward's not that dude. Cam Ward's going to put in the work. So I have no problem with him saying I'm at a 10 out of 10 right now with confidence. We can sit here and dissect the definition of the word confidence and whether it equates to optimism or actual confidence or whatever you want to do. But look, I'll just say the mistake you've made here, Jared, is caring at all about what someone says before things are actually happening. I start to care about what people think the moment it gets bad. That's when you know what it's going to be like, and that's where you're going to know if something is off. That's been one of my big issues with Will Levis. I never liked what he had to say after tough moments. I going back to college, it's a weird vibe with that guy. I never got a good sense of him. I really don't care what Cam Ward says right now. I care what Cam Ward says after they lose to Denver in week 1.
One thing that kind of bothers me, and I don't know exactly why it bothers me, Chad, but it feels to me like Titan fans are gassing up Cam Ward the same way they gassed up Will Levis last year. And the reason that bothers me is I'm almost like, did we not go through this last year? And I'm not saying that Cam Ward's going to end up as crappy as Will Levis. I'm just saying, I mean, it's almost like they're setting themselves up to get their hearts broken. I'm very cautious when it comes to a young quarterback and their success because I lived through Vince Young. I lived through Mariota. I lived through Will Levis. And yet I think these Titan fans are just ready to jump right back in the deep end as far as Cam Ward is concerned and not even think about all the hyping up they did of Will Levis last year.
Who hyped up Will Levis last year? I'm confused by this point you keep making.
Oh, my God. Titan fans, it was insane.
We must talk to very different Titans fans, or you must be hearing from all the Titans fans that live in Kentucky. Because I don't know. I heard you earlier mocking Tennessee fans that were saying, oh, boy, I didn't like the Will Levis pick, but, man, this guy is awesome, and he's got what it takes. Jared, after his debut, was that the Falcons game when he came in and played well that one year? That is the only moment in time I ever remember any Tennessee fan saying, well, maybe I was wrong about Will Levis. I mean, that's the first time I thought it, the only time was, hey, maybe the guy's going to be good. Who knows? I don't know who these hypothetical Tennessee fans are that you keep saying we're hyping up Will Levis.
Reed, give me give me old buddy on Bussing with the Boys. So this was when Levis did a sit down before the start of the 2020. So this past season, Levis went on Bussing with the Boys, and Will Compton calls out old buddy Reed, play the cut.
Jack, You didn't mess with Will Levis at first, right?
Don't do this. Don't do this.
You got the photo of him jumping over Tennessee, and it was kind of making me think. I was like, wait a minute.
No,
Jack was kind of before the draft happened.
Will, I'm Jack. Nice to meet you.
Tell him what happened.
Lifelong Titans fan. All right. So when you were not selected in the first round, I put out a tweet. And it was like, when you don't select Will in the first round, it's some like dumb dancing gif. And it was nothing against you. It was purely for the value play. The second round when we got you, I was
before
like,
that week though,
awesome.
on Bussin', you're like, I hope we don't get.
Well,
Will.
I'm a Tennessee guy. I'm a Tennessee fan. So, previous season it was fun to go back and forth. So you have a rival quarterback coming into Tennessee, and you want to have as much fun with it as possible. But when you got selected in the second round, and then when you had your first breakout game with the Titans, when you and D-Hop had those, like, Matt, what was it, 3 TDs, something like that, I did my due diligence, and in the parking lot afterwards, I said, I was wrong. And I said, I'm fully on the Levis train, and I want him to be as successful as he can, whether it's with the Titans or somebody else. So I'm fucking stoked. I've been singing your praises around town. I know you're going to be a dog out there. So, but it takes a man to admit when he was wrong.
Okay. That was the embodiment of Titans Twitter last offseason and before Levis flicked the ball against Chicago.
My 10-year-old daughter speaks with more authority and clarity than whoever that was speaking right there. I don't know who that is on Bussin' with the Boys. It was old buddy. It sounded like a high 12-year-old. I don't listen to their show that often. I think those guys are great. I think they're entertaining. That's not me dissing their show or anything. That sounded like a stone 12-year-old kid trying to give his observation about sports. That is not indicative of the Titans fan base. It's certainly not indicative of the Tennessee fan base. I talked to a lot of prominent Tennessee fans. I guarantee you there weren't a lot of people saying, oh, my gosh, Will Levis is going to be the next Aaron Rodgers in the NFL after what he showed in year one. I have no idea what that guy is. I'll tell you what he's doing, though. He's sucking up to a guest that was probably with him at the time, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Was Will Levis there? He's apologizing to him. So let's bring this gimp in from out of the basement and bring him in and let him suck up to our guest and talk about how now he loves him. If you're going to take that as an example of Titan fans, I think you're crazy. And here's the other thing about Twitter. It's not real. It's not real. I'm here to tell you, Jared, I will argue this to the day I die. Tennessee Vol fans have never, ever, ever been on board for Will Levis. Why? Because he's not a very good quarterback. They saw it from the beginning. This is one where Vols fans were right. Are they always right? Absolutely not. Were they right on Will Levis? Yes, definitively, 100,000%. Tennessee fans were right. You were creating a hypothetical Vols fan that I don't even think this guy you just played is real. I think he's playing a part. He's play acting. He's play acting on Bussin' with the Boys to suck up to Will Levis, and they're bringing him out to make fun of him. That's all that was. It's very simple. Tennessee fans have never been on board with Will Levis because he's not very good. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's not very good. That's the plain truth. And if they're excited about Cam Ward, great. Cam Ward's a better quarterback than Will Levis. He was a better quarterback in college. That's why he's the number one pick. He's going to be better than Will Levis. I will stake everything I own on Cam Ward being better than Will Levis. I don't know if he's going to be a great franchise quarterback. Jared, he's going to be better than Will Levis.
Will Levis said, Chad Withro with us. Will Levis said, and Reed, correct me if I'm wrong here. Will Levis said yesterday after practice was over that last year his head was not in the right place, that he had too many. I want to get this right. You can't play your best ball when you've got so many other things going on, something along those lines, and that his mental headspace was not in the right place for 20 weeks last year. He said that he's gotten that corrected, and he didn't want to go into details about what that meant. What do you make of that, Chad Withrow? The floor is yours.
I think everybody can say mental health about anything right now, and you can't say anything about it. That's just the world we live in right now. I don't know what his mental health situation is. I don't know where his head was last year, but I'm just, this is me just being, I'm the brutalist, Chad Withrow, right now. I'll give you the brutal honesty. And I'm not thinking about the kid's well-being or the kid's health or anything else, all right? I'm giving you the cold, hard facts about how an organization should look at that. Just no emotion at all tied to it. He's not the guy. He's going into year 2, and he's not in the right headspace for 20 weeks to be a quarterback in the NFL. After not showing enough in year 1, he's not the guy. That's it. I hope he gets the help he needs. I hope he clears his head. I hope he can go on to be a great backup for somebody. He is not a starting quarterback. And again, I am the AI machine that represents the Tennessee Titans or any NFL team. He is not the guy if that's the case. I don't care what goes into it. I don't care what's going on. Not the guy. Plain and simple.
Chad Withrow, strong words today. We think it's the girlfriends. You know, the one girlfriend from the draft and then the other girlfriend from The Bachelor and the 2 girlfriends. In fact, the 2 girlfriends I saw on Instagram, they were hanging out at CMA Fest together. Reed and I think it's the girlfriends. That was what he was referring to. That being said, I'll just say this, like, we've all
Duddy was the girlfriend. Yeah.
If you've ever had like a performing job, like, or even really any job, we've all had the breakup, right? And then like you still have to go do your job. Like, you, as tough as it is sometimes, you got to compartmentalize, right?
Well, also it's not his wife and they don't have kids together. So I'm not trying to be, too cold here, but come on. You're a dude in your early to mid 20s and you got a girlfriend and that's the mental baggage that you're carrying in. You got a lot of girlfriend drama. Break up with the girlfriend. This is a multi-million-dollar operation, not for the team. That's a billion-dollar operation for you. There's multi-millions of dollars. Go get another girlfriend. This is not the mother of your child. You don't have a family together. Like, I can understand a family breaking up and that being a problem for a quarterback or anyone mentally. Girl drama for a starting quarterback in the NFL when it's your girlfriend. Give me a break, man. I'm sorry. Like, you're not the guy. And right now, Chad Withrow is running through the filter of, I don't have any emotion. I don't care about your well-being or anyone else. I'm giving you the actual facts about a player. That's what the Tennessee Titans filter would spit out. Not the guy, move on. And guess what the Titans did? They drafted Cam Moore to quarterback, #1 overall.
Boy, I tell you, I'm going to miss the days when Will Levis isn't a Titan anymore for you on this program. The hot seat with Chad Withrow is next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chad Withro with us, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. He's from Outkick. Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
Let's get to the hot seat.
Number one, what is your level of interest in the NBA Finals through 3 games, game 4 tonight?
1.5. I'll turn it over if it's close and it's late. I can't get into it. I really can't. And I thought the NBA playoffs were pretty good in the middle of it, but once you get to the end and you've got these small of markets in it, look, the NBA, I mean, if we're really going to say what it is, it's a sport driven by sort of the coastal elite status. And when the New York Knicks were out of it, it was less interesting. It's less interesting to the media that covers it the most. It's less interesting to me. So I would like for the Pacers to win. It's a team that I've watched a lot in the 90s when I was a big Bulls and Michael Jordan fan. So I'd like for them to get that first NBA title. But outside of that, I just don't have a lot of interest in any of these players in this NBA Finals or any of the fan bases or markets. So I have very little interest.
I am becoming a Tyrese Halliburton fan, though, throughout these. But I will say this. Number two, the ESPN NBA broadcast crew has come under fire with Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson in the booth. However, some people would argue that it doesn't matter who calls the games. ESPN's also, along with the NBA, come under fire for selling ads on the court as opposed to putting the Finals logo on the court. What are your thoughts on the broadcast crew and whether or not it helps aid in NBA Finals broadcast?
So I don't really care about the advertising as much. I think Richard Jefferson is not good. I think Doris Burke is fine. I think Doris Burke has been put on this pedestal by too many where everybody acts like she's better than she is. She's fine. She's okay. She didn't come and save the NBA or save basketball with her infinite knowledge. She's fine as a broadcaster, and she's okay offering up, intelligent takes or analysis during a game. I think Richard Jefferson is not very good. I think his voice is bad during the broadcast. I think his timing is worse. I don't think he understands how to coexist in a 3-person booth during the games. What little I've watched the NBA Finals, it has been very distracting just how bad he's been. Jared, when most games you watch them and it's like, oh, they're fine. I'm probably like this as a color commentator. I feel like if you watch it, it's like, oh, he didn't say anything that great, but he was fine. Like, I'm a passable color commentator, right? You're going to watch the game and not be distracted by it. Richard Jefferson is so bad he's distracting me from it. That's a pretty low bar to go under.
That's Dennis Miller
so bad
territory.
that you're distracting. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain people that it's just distracting that they're either so different and you can be different and good, but that you're so bad at being different that it really is distracting from the broadcast. I think we've reached that point with Richard Jefferson.
I think Richard Jefferson and this broadcast crew is like Booger McFarland on the little Booger mobile on the sideline. It's like, okay, you're trying at ESPN, but why try it? Try it on some lower level games. And then, when you realize it doesn't work, don't bring it to Monday Night Football. Don't bring it to the NBA Finals. Okay. Number 3, will everyone play by the same rules with the House Settlement's $20.5 million cap to pay college players?
Yes, everyone will play by the rules with the $20.5 million. No one's going to play by the same rules when it comes to the rest of the NIL and how it's going to be spent with what's going to go on. And I am very interested in this appeal that's been filed by one of the young women from Vanderbilt, by the 8 female athletes who are saying this is a violation of Title IX. The truth is no one really knows if it is or not because it's never dealt in direct payments from a school. When you talk about equal opportunity, it's been about, protection against sexual harassment, sexual assault, discrimination, and making sure there's equal opportunity to play sports and to get a scholarship and for facilities. We haven't really gotten into the area of, well, now they're being paid by the school. Does this also equate to same amount of payment? Judge Claudia Wilkins says, no, it doesn't deal with that. But now there's appeal that says, no, it should deal with that. So I'm interested to see that. If that happens, Jared, the unintended consequence is these schools are going to trim down to about 4 sports. They're going to play football and men's basketball, and they're going to play women's basketball and women's volleyball or gymnastics or softball or whatever can possibly make them money if they're going to have to share money equally with male and female athletes. And that's unfortunate, but that's where we're headed, is we're about to cut a lot of sports, and not just women's sports. Men's sports that make no money, they're going to get cut too.
If you were the judge, would you just, again, without hearing the arguments or whatever, would you say that paying football players more than women's players is a violation of Title IX? Or would you, because, again, you want things to stay the same, say it is not a violation?
Well, let's start here. College sports will never be as good as they were before the players started getting paid. I think so few people are willing to say that, but it's the truth.
I think it's the same now.
15 years ago. We had it best 15 years ago. It's not the same now. It's not. I don't know half the players on a roster because they're there for 1 year and they leave. Whereas before, the transfer portal wasn't as active and guys weren't leaving. Now, when I'm watching a game, do I think the game quality goes down? No. I think the games themselves are fine, but there will be a law of diminishing returns because fans that have been with teams for years aren't going to recognize the players, and it's going to be a problem. It was better when the players didn't get paid. I'm not saying that's right. Obviously, a Supreme Court said, no, it's not right. It's unconstitutional. It can't happen. So it's not what's best for the players, but it was best for the fans. Quite frankly, it really was. We had the best system imaginable for years and years. That's gone away. So now what's the best moving forward? How can you salvage this? How can you make it okay? I don't think it's paying male and female athletes equally, which if that is forced to happen, it's going to be more of a detriment to sports overall in college as we know them than a good thing. Now, I think they're going to cut sports no matter what, because a lot of places are going to say, well, if we're all about the money now and it's all about money, we're only going to support those that make money. And we're going to be a money-making operation overall, and we're not ever going to mess with sports that lose us money. And that, again, is, I think, where we're headed. And going back to the first question, teams are not going to follow the rules when it comes to separate NIL payments. And it's going to be very easy to trick the NIL Go platform and trick the system to make everything legal, whether it is or not. And the haves are going to continue to have, and the have-nots are going to continue to have not.
Will Congress intervene, or will there have to be collective bargaining in college football?
So this is actually an interesting question, and one thing that I think could sort of salvage it a little bit. If you spun off football and men's basketball and you collectively bargain those two sports, and they suddenly weren't actually student athletes, but had the ability to go to school there and sort of made them a club-like system, then I think you could make it where, okay, these are athletes that, a lot of them go to school because they can to get a degree, but it's a club team, right? It's, Tennessee becomes the Knoxville club team that's a Tennessee Volunteer. That's just for football and men's basketball, because those athletes are going to collectively bargain because of the money those sports are generating. Then you could save everything else, right? Then everything else could fall under Title IX, and you could keep all those other Olympic sports and everything else. And that would give a lot more opportunity for young athletes to get scholarships to go play in college. So I think that's one workaround that could actually, in a weird way, help, even though it'd be strange for fans to wrap their heads around, oh, there are some players who don't even go to school here. But, I mean, honestly, actually, would it bother people if their favorite player on their favorite team didn't actually attend the school?
No.
Exactly.
What is your interest in the Stanley Cup final?
My interest in the Women's College World Series was higher, and the ratings were sometimes higher for the Women's College World Series. I read where Tennessee and UCLA that Sunday afternoon, where they had that crazy review that took so long about the home run where the UCLA player didn't touch home, they reached 3.6 million viewers on that Sunday afternoon on ABC at one point during that. That's crazy. That blows out NHL Stanley Cup final game 1 on that Sunday before the championship series. So I've got very little interest. And here's what disappoints me, Jared, is we talked about the Four Nations face-off. I really thought that would get me more excited for the NHL. It did. I love the Four Nation face-off. It was terrific, but it did not add to my excitement for NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, and it hasn't done anything for my interest in the Stanley Cup final.
Last one for you. Magic Johnson's definition of a superstar is somebody who sells out the opponent's venue. With that, what is your definition of a superstar?
That's a pretty good definition. My definition of a superstar is someone that when you say their name, 90% of your friends are going to know that person, right? So it's a very small club. We got into this discussion on our show today about movie stars, right? Like what defines an actual movie star? Tom Hanks is no longer a movie star. Denzel Washington may not be a movie star anymore, even though he has movie star charisma. Brad Pitt is trying to be a movie star with F1. Tom Cruise is definitely a movie star. Timothée Chalamet is becoming a movie star. There's like 3 or 4 that you could actually say are true movie stars, that if you put them in something, everyone's going to know who they are, and they have movie star, God tier level charisma that you're going to go watch. I think about that with superstar, but I expand it out a little bit more. There's not just 3 or 4 superstars, but I do think it's someone that if you say their name, it's going to resonate with most of your friends or family. And the NHL's having a hard time with that right now. There's not a ton of people you could say that about. The NBA's had that problem for a while. And the biggest problem with the NBA is the guys who are superstars, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, those guys are fading out of the league here in the next few years. So they need an SGA or a Tyrese Halliburton, right, to step up and be that next superstar. Those guys aren't there yet. They're not anywhere near superstar status, no matter what media companies want to sell to you that they are, just because they have the rights to the NBA. It's not true. They're not superstars. They're not superstars, just like Matt Damon's not a movie star right now. And I love Matt Damon. He was a movie star. He's not anymore. And that's the difference.
Chad Withro from Outkick on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Chad, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Fun time as always. Thanks.
Yep. Chad Withro on our program presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Basketball. I've kind of gotten into it. Amin El Hassan, NBA Radio, will join us coming up next. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Amin El-Hassan joins us now from NBA Radio. And I will tell you something, Amin. I am shocked by the fact that going into this series, OKC was minus 700. As of 48 hours ago, they were minus 550. Now they're still the favorites in the series, but Indiana has thrown two massive punches so far through the first three games to where it kind of feels like it's anybody's series. You're sitting in the driver's seat here. How do you feel about kind of the balance of power right now between these two teams?
I'm probably right where Vegas was, because before the series, I thought Oklahoma City was a clear favorite. I thought they dominated most of game one, and then they had an unfortunate end, which is kind of what Indiana has done a whole playoff long to everybody. I thought game two was like, okay, this is more like what we're going to see. And then game three happened, and I was there, and I was staggered. I was staggered by Indiana's aggression on the defensive end. I was staggered by the lack of a sense of urgency I felt from Oklahoma City. I mean, they played well through three quarters, but they never had that hunger and that fire and that desperation that Indiana had pretty much all night long. And at the end of that game, I sat there and I had to come to grips with, as a lot of people did, like, holy crap, they might actually do this. This is anyone's series at this point.
I do wonder, what do you make of the fact that the Thunder are so good defensively? I mean, Anthony Edwards was stymied in the Western Conference Final. And yet, while Tyrese Halliburton wasn't the same in game two, it doesn't seem to be slowing him or his teammates in the way he's been getting them the ball down, especially in game three.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I don't think they stymied Halliburton. More so, he didn't approach with the appropriate amount of aggression in the first two games. He's very much a setup guy. He wants to get his guys going. And maybe he's got that feeling to a fault. He's even late in that second game where he's still trying to get Pascal Siakam going and Miles Turner going and all those guys. And, you know, I think the adjustment for him between 2 and 3 was, I have to be more aggressively seeking my shot, because me being an aggressive offensive option makes me setting up people a lot easier. There's a great example of this in the first half where they swing the ball to Tyrese at the top and he fakes the swing pass to the right, and the defender jumps, leaving the man with the ball wide open, and Halliburton drains the three. And I said, that's how little they respect your offense at this point. They think you're always trying to pass it. So even when you have the ball, people would rather leave the ball thinking you're going to pass it rather than shoot. So I think the light has gone off for him there. Now, when it comes to OKC's defense, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, Indiana's pace, playing up tempo, has definitely, helped. It's harder to lock down defensively when you're moving fast. And number two, and I think this is a big one, the pre-adjustment, I should say, by the Oklahoma City Thunder, the decision to go small, and not only small in terms of their starting lineup, but multiple times throughout these finals, they've gone small with no bigs on the floor, no Hartenstein and no Chet Holmgren. And I think that plays more to Indiana's strengths than it does Oklahoma City.
Amin El-Hassan's with us, NBA Radio. What kind of counter punches do you expect tonight from OKC, both strategically and probably from a competitive standpoint?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's got to be a higher sense of urgency on the defensive end, pressuring, making sure that, again, Halliburton doesn't feel comfortable. I thought game two, they did a really good job of Lou Dort kind of just shadowing him 90 feet and not allowing him to get a clean catch or a clean dribble up the floor. I think more of that. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has to have a great game. I think that was a big thing. They got good games out of Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. Shai wasn't himself. And so he's got to be more aggressive and he's got to be more definitive. There's a lot of I felt in game three, a lot of kind of tentative play by him, resulting in an uncharacteristic amount of turnovers. And while we're on the subject of turnovers, they have to take care of the ball. Game three, they had so many sloppy turnovers, lazy passes, telegraph passes, cross-court passes. That can't be. I mean, that's not who they are. That's not who they've been all year long. Again, going back to that sense of urgency, this is the final. Like, this isn't regular season game number 52 in the middle of March or whatever. This is this is real deal. In the words of Apollo Creed, there is no tomorrow, and you can't fall down 3-1 in a series because we know only one team has come back from that in the NBA Finals.
I mean, what do you make of the fact that Tyrese Halliburton was voted the most overrated player in the NBA and has just rolled through star after star, whether it's Giannis or Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland or Jalen Brunson, and right now is up 2-1 in the finals and has outplayed SGA? I mean, what does that say about Halliburton?
Well, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't say he's outplayed SGA. He's up 2-1, but I think if we're just looking at both those guys, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 2 really good games and 1 subpar by his standards game. Whereas I would say Halliburton hit last night, game 3 was his first real big time game. So I wouldn't say he's outplayed SGA, but obviously he's up 2-1 and that's all that matters. But the overrated thing is really interesting. And I got to shout out Rachel Nichols because she's the one that pointed this out. So first and foremost, we all have to remember, we didn't vote him overrated. Like the media didn't, the fans didn't. It was a player. It was a player poll. So number one, as everyone, especially these player podcasts, like, oh, see, they're trying to say this. Not they, y'all. Y'all did that, right? Number one. Number two, and this is the part where Rachel pointed out that I thought was brilliant. The sample size of the poll was something like 40 some odd players. He had the highest percentage of responses, but it's not like he had like 70%. It came out to like I want to say 34, maybe 30 to 20%, which when you do the math comes out to about 7 or 8 players. So 7 or 8 NBA players voted Tyrese Halliburton most overrated. And now there's a whole economy that's grown out of those 7 or 8 players who, for whatever reason, they think that, whether they're just salty, whether they really think so, it doesn't matter. All that matters is we're taking literally 7 or 8 people's opinion and applying it not only to the entire NBA player base, but to the NBA media and the NBA fans and everyone who's kind of an NBA customer or consumer. And that to me is bizarre. He's not overrated. No one thinks 7 or 8 people think he's overrated. And we need to stop like feeding into that. I get it for him and his team. It's great bulletin board material, but it just doesn't reflect any sort of real truth within basketball.
I mean, when it comes to Halliburton, do you feel like, I made a joke yesterday that if I was Rick Carlisle, I would put the TV on a loop on ESPN and ESPN2 and ESPN News and Fox Sports 1 with all the talking heads talking about Tyrese Halliburton, because it feels to me like those kind of negative things that are said, he clearly is thinking about him if he's talking about him in the post-game press conference. It feels to me as if he's one of these guys that thrives off of it. Some guys turtle in, they can't read, they can't hear, they have to get off social media. He seems to me like he's the opposite. Do you get that sense when it comes to Tyrese Halliburton and that dog inside of him?
Well, I would say, first of all, most of these guys don't get off social media, and that's the problem. They are terminally online and caring about the wrong thing. The difference with Tyrese Halliburton is he is someone who is willing to wear the black hat, to use old cowboy movie cliches, right? Meaning he's all right with being a villain. And there's only a handful of those guys, and it feels like there are less of them now than there have ever been. But when you get a guy like that, like really relishes, oh, you guys don't like me. Oh, I like hearing the boos on the road more than I like hearing the cheers at home. When you get a guy like that, it really does kind of fuel and again, the slights can be real or imagined. It can be as real as people booing him and as imagined as 7 or 8 guys in the NBA giving him the moniker of overrated, but it doesn't matter. What matters is he's drawing inspiration and drawing motivation out of it. And that's great. And then the other thing is when he gets to these end of game situations, he has incredible focus, right? There's a level of kind of jitters that you get. Not nervousness, but just kind of a flood of adrenaline you get in those situations that, causes things like shooting to become effective, right? He's not one of those guys. He's one of those guys who gets to calm himself in those moments and really focus and channel that energy into making sure everything is right. And that's I think he's been terrific these playoffs, and he's terrific for the league. We need Tyrese Halliburton to be consistently like this, not just those moments, but consistently like this, because I think it's good for the game.
Amin El-Hassan's with us here, NBA Radio. If you are OKC, how worried are you about how deadly it feels like Indiana's bench was in Game 3? Whether it was Mathurin, I mean, I thought Obi Toppin played his rear end off in game number 3.
Right.
Not to say that OKC doesn't have a bench themselves, but it's almost like, okay, we're going to stop Halliburton, but he's now getting the ball to everybody else. McConnell, Nembhard, Neesmith. How much would that worry you of, okay, if we try to go at the head of the snake, it's going to be the tail and the rest of the body that gets us?
Well, I think glass half full for Oklahoma City. They are a team which every single person who plays for them is a good defensive player. Every single, they don't have, we make a big deal about two-way players. Oh, this guy's a two-way player. Their whole roster is two-way players. Everyone who steps on the floor is an offensive threat in one way or another and can defend. And so from that standpoint, I'm not worried if I'm Oklahoma City because I have a bench too. Now, the part I'm worried is, again, if we're walking in too cool for school and they're not. Indiana clearly has shown they're coming in to take off your head every single night. Win or lose, you never question the effort on the Pacers side. Whereas, again, I think the effort level in game 3, for Oklahoma City was lacking. And especially when they went up a little bit in the third quarter, it kind of felt like, okay, we got this. These guys are going to lay down. And I thought game 1 should have taught them these guys never lay down. So if I'm Oklahoma City, I don't think of it as a schematic or a tactical issue. Like, oh my God, how do I guard all these guys? I think of it more as, hey, how do we come out with the requisite amount of energy and focus to make sure we finish the job, that we're doing it through 48 minutes, not 36, not 42, or what have you.
Last one for you, Amin. I do wonder this. Are we going to get OKC's best shot tonight? Because Charles Barkley said this after game 3. You said it at the beginning of this. You don't want to go down 3-1. Barkley thinks if they go down 3-1, it's over. I kind of feel the same. Are we going to get the best shot tonight from OKC? What are you expecting?
So we acknowledge first and foremost, every time OKC has lost a game in these playoffs, they've come back, they're undefeated coming back in those games. And not only are they undefeated, they come back with a vengeance. It's a drubbing. So that's number 1. Number 2, you expand that out to the regular season. They lost back-to-back games twice all year long. Once early on, I believe in November, and once in early April. So their history, their resume says, when we lose, we usually respond, and we respond with force. Having said that, if you lose game 4, you're down 3-1. Again, something like 13 teams have done it in the history of basketball, right? In the history of basketball, going back to whenever we started playing 7-game series, 47, 48, whenever that was. 13 teams, right? I know it feels like it's commonplace because we saw the Nuggets do it against the Clippers, and we saw the Warriors do it against the Thunder, and we saw the Cavs do it against the Warriors in that same playoff run. But it's very rare. And then when you say on this level, right, it's happened only once in 2016. And in order for that to happen, you needed Draymond Green suspended. You needed Andrew Bogut hurt, Andre Iguodala hurt. You needed Harrison Barnes to be on a milk carton. You needed Kyrie to hit one of the biggest shots of all time. You needed LeBron James to have one of the biggest defensive plays of all time. And you needed Kevin Love to guard Steph Curry one-on-one for the game, right? All of those things had to happen for Cleveland to pull out the unimaginable, the impossible, right? And they did, and it did. As you can see, probably not a strategy you want, right? As like, okay, all we got to do is have all those things. No, don't get to that point. So to be down 2-1 already right now, I think it's problematic for them. To go down 3-1, I think that's a nail in the coffin. Maybe they don't lose in 5, maybe they lose in 6, but I just don't think you survive trying to go perfect over the last 3 games of the series if you're down 3-1.
Amin El-Hassan, NBA Radio. I love talking hoops with you. I mean, I could do it all day. Enjoy game number 4 tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, Fireball, Hot Take Friday. So a little Amin El Hassan right there, NBA radio. Talked to him earlier today on Sirius, which I really enjoyed. So I figured, why not? And I got to tell you, I was a little bummed out when Chad Withro was on the show earlier today, and I asked him, had he gotten into the NBA Finals? Because I knew at the beginning of it, I hated these NBA Finals, and I knew that he hated these NBA Finals, but I felt like, you know what? I'm getting into it. I had gotten into the NBA Finals, and I was thinking maybe other people, maybe Chad Withro had gotten in to the NBA Finals with Game 4 tonight, and he was like, yeah, no, probably like a 1.5 as far as his own interest level with the finals. So I've been thinking about this all day. Tonight, I'm going to make a prediction. Now, keep in mind, my prediction for Game 3 was OKC. My prediction for hockey yesterday was Florida. So keep that in mind if you're going to go place a parlay or something like that. I heard somebody say today that the winner of tonight's game wins the series. And I actually do believe that. Here's the real prediction I've gotten into. And boy, did I swing and miss on Game 3. Because Game 3, I didn't expect to be as entertaining as it was. It was a close game. They did crack 9 million. Barely. But they did crack 9 million viewers as far as the NBA Finals TV ratings were concerned. My prediction is, because it's a Friday night, I think that's going to drop the rating some. The finals have sat in the low 8s, and then they cracked 9. I mean, high 8s and low 9s. I'm going to dock them a point, but because it's a crucial game, I'm going to say 9 million viewers flat, which would still be horrible. There's no changing how awful these ratings are. Adam Silver has even come out and said they're bad ratings, so there's no changing that. But I'm going to go and I'm going to say 9 million flat. OKC wins comfortably. 9 million flat. College World Series, Louisville first pitch is in like 5 minutes. Go Cardinals. I'm excited about that. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see everybody Monday at 2.